Alrighty, welcome back. Um, I told you guys I'd be back next week, and it's next week, and I've returned. I was not a liar for once.
For once.
For once.
For once.
I have Patrick here with me again. It's been a little while.
Aye.
It's nice to have you back on again.
It's good to be back.
I'm glad we're getting back into this. We still need to sit down and do Akira and Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that.
We'll get to that.
We'll get we will. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So this week, this is probably going to be a long one. So let's just jump right into it. There's no point, beating around the bush. We're doing Fate Zero.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second of the Fate episodes we're doing. Last week, Leslie and myself did Unlimited Blade Works, 2014's Ufotable production, and this week, you and I are reviewing 2011's Ufotable production of Fate Zero, which is the prequel to not just Unlimited Blade Works, but is the prequel to, in fact, the entire Stay Night trilogy. But we can...
Well, it's not really a prequel because it was produced first. Everything else
Well,
is sequels from this.
Well,
Isn't
no,
it?
well, no, because Stay Night was... Little fun nerd backstory for you guys. The entire Fate franchise is built off of the Stay Night visual novel from 2004, which is also why in Stay Night, the year that it takes place in is 2004. The next adaptation to come out of that was Studio Dean's 2006 adaptation of the Fate route of Stay Night, which was terrible. Then there was the 2008 adaptation of Blade Works by Studio Dean as well, as a movie, which was also terrible. I got 15 minutes in and I was like, I can't. It's either 2008 or 2009, something like that. And then following that, they gave Studio Ufotable a shot to try to produce it. And they said, hey, we've already done Stay Night, and we've already done, Blade Works. We just did I think in 2006, the same time Studio Dean came out with the Fate Stay Night adaptation. I think 2006 is when Nasu released the light novel Fate Zero, which was to serve as a prequel. And then the manga started in, I think a year before, either a year before or a year after the 2011 anime.
So this is a prequel.
So this is a prequel because the original material is technically still from 2004. And the original material this is based off traces its origin back to 2006, which is after. So, even though
whatever,
this was produced in 2011, Blade Works was produced in 2014, this is a prequel.
A narrative prequel.
Don't you love these?
Not really.
Don't you love these timelines?
No.
All right.
I get totally confused by it, honestly, because it's just...
It's a bit chaotic, but, I think...
It's got more twists than a Tarantino movie. So
yeah. You got us, but you lucky listeners here. You have us to walk you through it and point you in the right direction, guide you on your journey. So,
as a friend of mine likes to say, we will walk you through the garden of understanding.
Into the forest of misery that we find ourselves in. All right, well, without further ado, let's jump into it. And as I said with Blade Works, spoiler alert, huge spoiler alert. Every aspect of this series is best if you go into it with only the knowledge you have from the prior works. Listening to reviews and things like that, before you go and watch it for yourself, it's not going to ruin the experience, but it will take away from it. In my opinion, it will take a lot away from it. These are phenomenally well written, phenomenally well produced, phenomenally well voice acted, and Everything about them is so well done, and they are. Zero is regarded by a lot to be a modern classic. So, with that out of the way, Pat, what did we, if you can recall back to your first exposure to Fate Zero?
Well,
how do you recall if you had any expectations going into it? Because you saw Blade Works first.
Saw Blade Works first. Didn't understand when I saw it. Well, you didn't really tell me a lot about it when you had me watch it.
Yes.
So started watching it probably about halfway through the first season of it. I had no clue what the hell was going on still.
Yeah.
Kind of understood the basic storyline to it. By the time it was done, liked it. A lot of it left a lot of questions like why, like a lot of questions about like who, what, and why, and when and where kind of things. And we watched Zero afterwards.
Yes, which is my recommended watch.
Yeah, and it sort of like filled in a lot of the blanks from Blade Works, and frankly, I like it better than Blade Works personally.
Which is why you're doing this one as opposed to having been on the Blade Works episode.
But it's a good foundation for really all of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the starting point, as far as the anime goes. At least I haven't read of this stuff. I don't marinate myself in the universe as much as you do.
It is canonically it is the earliest. I believe it's the earliest of the animated. At least the animated adaptations that I'm aware of. It takes place first, taking place primarily in 1994.
Right. And it's there's nothing wrong with watching it before you watch everything else, because it'll fill in the blanks and you'll learn things going forward. But it didn't bother me that much because it's funny. It's like I watched Blade Works, then I watched Zero, and I had a lot of aha moments about what stuff in Blade Works suddenly meant.
Yeah.
And once you learn about the backstory behind it from Zero.
Yeah.
But it didn't give me the sense that, geez, I really wish I'd watched this first. It was more, you had that sort of like little mini epiphanies as you're watching.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's I don't think you're doing anything wrong by watching Zero before you watch Blade Works, but I think if you watch Blade Works first, you get some forehead slapping moments in Zero where you're like, oh, that's what that means.
I compare it oftentimes, and you can let me know what you think of this analogy. With the exception of, obviously, I compare it a lot of the times to watching the Star Wars films. It's like watching we're not talking about the newest trilogy, by the way. We're talking about the original and then the prequels. Let's assume the prequels weren't trash. Let's just pretend in a universe where the prequels weren't terrible. You would never suggest that somebody start watching Star Wars by watching the prequels first.
In terms of the timeline, if you watch the prequels first, you're never going to watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be like, this is not worth 6 more movies.
Well, I mean, but again, assuming the prequels were tolerable.
But exactly. I mean, you learn what kind of what kind of a badass Darth Vader is. You get the whole sense of like, if like Luke and Leia are. More spoilers, by the way, for anybody.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler for a movie that came out in
1977 initially, but the most let's not even go there.
We're not doing that. But we'll save that for another podcast.
But similar to that, where you learn like, Luke and Leia are brother and sister. Like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
But then you see the second prequels and you realize you see it. You're not doing anything wrong with learning it, but there's a certain, you lose those aha moments if you watch them in like, linear fashion.
I say a lot
chronological, I should say.
Yeah, I say a lot that it's like, that let's say you haven't been immersed in pop culture, since Empire Strikes Back came out. And let's say you don't know.
Raiders actually was the last installment.
No. I'm talking about Empire Strikes Back specifically.
Okay.
Let's say you have been under a rock since before that movie came out, and you, for whatever reason, didn't know that Darth Vader, spoiler alert, is Luke's father. Oh my god.
The only way you wouldn't know that is if you saw the original Star Wars, thought it was crap, and never bothered to watch any of the others.
So
and then ignored all of the billion or so pop culture references to Luke, I am your father.
Yeah. So basically, I compare it a lot of the ways. It's like that moment, that Luke, I am your father, that has punch to it because you don't necessarily see it coming. But then if you watch the prequels first, then when he's like, Luke, I'm your father, it's like, or no, I am your father. It's like, yeah, we know. We watched you whine and complain your way into being his dad for 3 movies.
Well, here's the thing. It's that it's a little bit of apples and oranges in that instance because, as far as like a Star Wars reference, I mean, I know black holes exist. I've never studied them or observed one, but I know they're real because of all the things, anything you read, anything you see on TV, catch Discovery Channel, Science Channel, whatever, they're out there.
Well, gravity's fake, so I don't know.
But you don't necessarily have to have ever seen Empire Strikes Back to watch an episode of Family Guy or see all the T-shirts or just the Father's Day references or all these millions of things.
Yeah.
Like, Darth Vader is Luke's dad, even if you hadn't seen the movie at this point.
And
but the thing is with this show is this is.
It's not quite
it isn't as culturally pervasive as something on the level of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So if you can watch them in either order, but I recommend it. You don't have to worry about watching Blade Works and having any surprises ruined for you before you get a chance to watch Zero. So I think you're safe.
Yeah, because it's
Perfectly safe.
everything. I've said like every plot twist, every like moment in Blade Works that has these punches to it, where it's like, I'm this, that they kind of come out of left field with it. They are broadcast so freaking far in advance before the events happen in Zero, that it's like it's coming, and we'll get to the specific instances that I'm talking about. But overall, it's how would you when you first watched Zero, based on what your expectations were going into it versus what you got out of it, how do you think? How did you like it, really? How did you like it?
Here's the thing: I didn't have much of a sense of what I was going to be seeing because I knew it was another Fate series, and it took place beforehand, and that's how I kind of knew about it. So it was it was interesting because you learned how the board got set in Blade Works. Like, who are these people doing this thing? Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
How are they winding up with the servants they wound up with? What's going on here?
That's a really good way to put
it's
it,
like who, you learn, like, you watch Zero and you learn how all that got put in place.
Yeah.
And I personally thought it was more interesting. I like Zero better because there's just an element of real world ishness into it that doesn't exist.
There's weight.
There are real world physical consequences to the stuff that people do in Zero that doesn't necessarily exist in Blade Works. Blade Works has more magic in it, for lack of a better word.
Kind of
it has a bit more and Zero has plenty of that. If you're looking for, all sorts of things Japanese in terms of, wizards and warriors and stuff like that, you're going to get it in that. But there's also stuff in there that it's like, if a bullet will get the job done, then a bullet's going to get used, rather than, a complicated spell or some sort of crazy incantation or whatever.
Yeah.
It
does remind me of all the people who are like, oh, blah 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 could beat blah blah, and then somebody walks up and just shoots him in the chest.
Yeah, why didn't somebody just put a bullet
in
Voldemort's head and solve the problem?
You know exactly what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the scene in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Where
he's just this guy does this huge crazy. That's exactly what it is. Like, you could have all these screaming, somebody yelling out in Japanese the name of the moves they're about to use, and all the pyrotechnics going off, and then they catch a sniper bullet in the side of their head. Boom, it's over. We're done here. Let's move on. And that kind of stuff. You get a lot of that. Which is really refreshing.
It really is. It's a nice change of pace in a lot of ways.
There are some really great no bullshit moments in Fate Zero that you don't see in this kind of genre, generally speaking. Which is the thing about it, I think, that really sets it apart for me, that I like.
So, would you call this a shonen anime?
No, I would not.
No.
While there is an awful lot of speech making in this, there is less speech making than there is in Blade Works.
Yeah.
And some of the speeches that are made generally involve people calling bullshit on the characters that are just at the edge of starting to get a little shonen-y.
Yeah.
And they basically said,
I have the ultimate power. Oh, shut up.
Yeah, it's like, really, just have a drink. Just relax.
Yeah.
It's like, you sound like a what did he say? It's like you sound. That's the dreams of a starstruck little girl. It's like
yeah.
It's just something like that.
Yeah. I think I actually have that quote written down. We'll get to that though.
Yeah.
But jumping ahead from plot, I think we summed up that pretty well. Tonally, how do you feel about Zero?
I think I like. It's drawn in such a way that there's a little bit of cartoonishness with some of the servant characters. Definitely, especially Castor. But the way the characters are drawn, it's like there is an element of reality to it. It graphically, it reminded me more of something along the lines of Death Note or Ghost in the Shell or something like that, where the people, there's. Everything looks realistic.
Yeah.
So you put
Ghost in the Shell, especially.
Yeah, you put like fantastical elements into a real world setting, and it blends better. I like the fact that when Saber is walking around, she's walking around in a black suit. She's not walking around in her Middle Ages magical,
magically woven armor.
Her cast iron maid's outfit or whatever the hell it is that they think she's going to be able to fight in that thing. Which in the real world just wouldn't work. But she was. But basically she looks like a Secret Service agent. Which I think is excellent. It's an excellent choice because it just blends better. There's less. There's just less. I don't want to say, there's just less fantasy to it.
No, that's not a bad way to put it because it's although it could be classified as urban fantasy in some ways in terms of its setting, it's not a fantasy story. It's not, and that's why
It's a uniquely Japanese. It's a uniquely anime story.
It is.
This wouldn't work as a live action thing.
No.
It wouldn't work as like.
I'm waiting for Netflix to announce the live action adaptation.
I really hope they don't. You would have thought that.
I hate to say it. I would watch it.
You would have thought the world would have learned its lesson when they tried to do Attack on Titan with people.
Yeah, but then Death Note came out, and they also. Oh, what about there's also the Full Metal Alchemist live action.
Oh, there is.
And then there's a Dragon Ball live action where I guess he's in high school despite being like a however many thousand-year-old.
It better be a parody of Dragon Ball if it is. If it's
might as well be. Everything I've heard about it, it is just one of the. People have said it's a worse adaptation than the M. Night Shyamalan Avatar.
Wow,
movie.
That's bad.
Because at the very the argument that was made was at the very least. You could recognize Shyamalan's movie as being Avatar.
I'll get a hard pass. So.
Yeah.
I don't have enough years left in my life to waste on something like
that. Anyway. But yeah, no, I think that, definitely, especially in terms of the style, I definitely agree with that. It's actually, it's interesting. For the style, for me, the animation is still outstanding. In my opinion, I still find it absolutely stunning. But it's interesting watching it right after Blade Works because it's been a while since I watched the two back to back. And watching it right after Blade Works, I noticed it's noticeably less refined. You can tell Studio Ufotable. I applaud how talented they are as a studio because every single thing they work on that I've seen. You can see how it influences the thing they work on next, and you can see where they learn from it. We'll get into the Heaven's Feel movies next week, but even the Heaven's Feel movies, from 1 to 2 to 3, you can see them getting better.
Yeah.
And kudos to them. But even still, even going back to their stuff with Garden of Sinners, which is another Nasu work that they animated. Even Garden of Sinners, which I want to say was like 2000. Oh God, I don't know, 2000, somewhere between 2007 2009, but I don't remember exactly when because I'm a bad fan. But even that still looks really, really gorgeous. But then you look at it next to Zero, and you're like, well, Zero's light years better. And then you look at Zero and Bladeworks, and the difference isn't as big. But if you look at the two side by side, you're like, I can definitely tell this one's older.
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
based on the fact that I just watched the two side by side, that was the thing I walked away from. There's a lot more bold lines, a lot more hard shadows and things like that.
Well, see, that's just the thing I was thinking about. Like with Zero, it feels grittier than Bladeworks did. Like Bladeworks, I mean, the graphics and the animation in Bladeworks is very good.
Yeah.
And it is a bit more refined.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly the exact word.
It's not a radical leap from the look of Zero. So you can definitely tell they both belong together just visually.
Yes.
But the thing I like about Zero that sets it apart is that it has like sort of a film noir element to it.
Yes.
Like if you look, like a lot of like some of the scenes that Carrie and Gilgamesh are having. Some of the and when they're in his office, some of the way they set the lighting in it like that. Some of the night scenes, the way they filmed, the way they drew, animated, like a lot of the cityscape scenes and things like that. Some of the shots on the bridges, things like that. It's just it had a very
a lot of fog, a lot of mist,
it had a very like moody kind of look to it, very film noir. It was like it had a real, and it was a
very good use of mise en scène.
Okay, film school. Boy.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say I went to film school for 5 years, so I could use that. Let me have this moment.
Anyways, it's eminently watchable. There's a lot of anime out there that you can watch at one time and you say, "Wow, that was really great," but it's such an assault on the senses that it's hard to like come around and think, "Do I really want to put my eyeballs through that again?" Even though I liked it. Yeah, this is something. It's like it's smooth. It's subtle. There are some classic anime scenes with like basically stellar supernova level pyrotechnics coming out of one person's hand kind of things, but not constantly, and there's a time and a place for it. But when that's not happening though, sometimes you get a sense of like some of these scenes you lose sense of that you're actually watching an anime and you're just watching a movie. You're watching a TV show or something like that.
It really does do that. And tonally, you compare this to Bladeworks. Zero is a lot darker. Yeah, it is.
But it's a darker story.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Its tone is so much more downtrodden and so much more dire and just everything. It's not. I almost made a comparison to Attack on Titan. Then I realized that we haven't done the review on Attack on Titan yet. But for anybody who's seen Attack on Titan, it's not as perpetually depressing as Attack on Titan is, in the sense that like literally no character ever has a victory. But it's depressing in the sense that even when they win, they still lose. Well,
it's told on a larger scale than Bladeworks is.
Yes.
Bladeworks is almost a sort of like this is them picking up the pieces from the events of fate, basically is what it is. So there's more weight to it. There's just I don't know. It's a totally cliche term to use, but like a gravitas. It's just you get the sense important things are happening that will affect how this world proceeds. I don't mean the world at large, but I mean the world of these that these people in this this event. the way this event the people in that world, the mages and things like that. It's a pivot point as to how they will handle this going forward. Yeah. If they even do.
If they even get.
So it's
past it.
So there is a it's darker by necessity, but it's not it's not overdone.
Yeah, no,
You
no,
know,
that's a good way to put it.
you know,
Yeah, and that's why I made the comparison to Attack on Titan, because one of my bigger criticism was with that is that it's overly melodramatic, and it's overly like every character, like every time the protagonist like thinks they win a victory, it immediately gets like taken away from them. And with this, that's not really the case. It's like you have the protagonist like winning little victories here and there and gaining ground, but the big thing is like that the
You have real world people with real world things, like Attack on Titan, for instance. People in that world, they're born with PTSD.
yeah.
You know, it's like in this they earn it the hard way.
Yeah.
And you know, but it's there are a lot of, especially the scenes with Kurotsugu.
Yes.
And
Who's our protagonist?
But a lot of the scenes when he's away from the whole magecraft thing and the actual involving servants and things like that, and you're watching him in action, I get a sense of like watching like some sort of like 70s, 70s cinema kind of crime movie or political thriller or something like that.
Yeah.
The way they film it and the way they just present him as a character, and it's mature and it's smart and it's really, and that's the part of it that I really like, is you get away from like this all the kind of cliche swords and sorcery stuff. It's none of that is really overdone in this.
No.
And I like that.
And even the scenes, specifically thinking about the fight, that big first fight between Lancer and Saber, even the scenes that are sword clashing and stuff, most of that fight is done kind of like the fight at the end of the second Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey. It's like it's mostly done in their heads.
Yeah.
Because you can tell these are two professional, badass career soldiers. Yeah. Who are experts at what they do. Having this battle of wits.
And they take the time, but they take the time to show the mutual respect between the two.
Yeah, and they also don't over-explain it. Like you have this moment where like she's considering, she's like, okay, if I do this, if I can do get one attack, it's a little bit less. You don't have another character in the background going, oh my goodness, it looks like she's waiting for a moment when this will happen so that she can then strike him down, and then
you don't get a 6 minute pause so somebody can rattle off the speech of how important it is that what they're about to do is
this
they're
particular
gonna do
sword swing.
which literally comes down to the fact that all they're going to do is they're going to basically just jab. It's like just jab. It's like Eli Wallach from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's like when you got to shoot, don't talk. And that's the biggest hang up I have with a lot of anime, is that especially the shonen stuff is like you'll get, you could have a great action sequence, but it's going to get broken up by, something will start, somebody will stop, make a speech. Do something, and then the other person will now make a "ha-ha, I'm the villain" speech, and then this is like, they're letting their actions speak for them, but there
are certain characters. I want to just interject here, because there are certain characters who do have their fights where they do banter a lot during the fight, but that's makes sense with their characters. It's not every. That's hardly every fight. Most of the characters, when they're fighting, they're just trying to fucking kill each other.
Yeah.
But then you got a couple of characters, like there's two characters, Saber and Lancer, and they're both knights, and they both have this very, very important to them, like this code of chivalry.
Right.
And it's all about honor in combat and honorable duel and things like that. And so they have this mutual respect where when they fight, you see they tend to be more talkative, and they tend to be more almost playful. It's like they are trying to kill each other. They are trying to kill each other. But you can tell they're like, it's almost like a sport for them. They're like...
I looked at it more as it was more of like a profession. Similar to the way that like, in the heat of battle, they're going to, to be no holds barred. They'll be very much trying to kill each other. But outside of that, they understand they're both professionals. It's not personal with each other. It's just this is the side I'm on, this is the side. Much like you hear from like soldiers from war on different sides.
Yes.
In the heat of war, they hate each other's guts and they want each other dead very badly.
Yeah.
But once they step away from that and they take the uniforms off, they realize it's like that was war.
Yeah. We
don't actually know each other. We have no reason to hate each other personally. That kind of thing. The soldiers code, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. And it's but that's the thing. Those speeches that they give. they're not giving these speeches where they're like, I'm just speaking to like, to the camera, to the world about the importance of my identity and this and that and the meanings of all the things I do. Generally, if they're giving some kind of speech, they're giving it to their opponent in response to whatever it is that they said to them about something or whatever they think about them.
Yes.
Chivalry being a great example.
Yeah.
Because that gets called, and that's the thing about this too, is like you had a lot of it in Blade Works with Archer and the whole the myth of the hero.
Yes.
And how that's more important than literally anything and la la la.
Yeah, your ideals dragging you down.
Yeah, there's this sacrifice all for your ideals kind of thing. And on more than a couple of occasions in Zero, there's a character that just calls bullshit on it.
Yeah.
And it's just and explains why it's bullshit.
And you understand it. Like you
may not agree with it.
You may not agree with it, and I know a bunch of people I've watched it with that are like, "Fuck that character!" Like for this particular scene, like, but it's like at the end of the day, and you and I talked about this right before we started recording. It's like Fate Zero, the story, is a battle of ideologies. That's what the story comes down to. It's a character drama that is a conflict of ideologies. It presents. Every character has their ideology, and every character is acting in a way to achieve their goal. And at no point do they do something without reason. At no point do they do anything that actively would work against what their beliefs are, unless they're pressured by some outside source. It's like every character all the time is working towards their goal.
Yeah, I would say that, and I think, but an important point to that too is the fact that they have their ideology, but the core root of all their ideologies, all their separate rationale for being in this thing, they claim all these great reasons for chivalry, save the world, save the planet, save this, save that, and end this.
Yeah.
And it's all based on kind of like a self-centeredness, so that I may do this, so that it's, I want to win to do this. And it's, and the folly of that ideology basically comes through as they frankly fail to get to where they think they're going to get to.
Yeah.
Because as they get into it to try and achieve these high-minded goals, the things they have to do and the results they get from them prove that this is not the way to go about it.
No, it's not. And that's a good way to put it too, because with I mean, I guess
it's a bit of a morality tale.
Yeah, I don't want to. I almost got a little bit in the weeds comparing the morals presented in Zero with the morals presented in Blade Works, but that'll be a whole episode in and of itself, comparing the two. But we're getting enough in the weeds just talking about this. You can
save some of this for that broadcast then.
Yeah. So we'll jump kind of back into this. We touched on it already. I'll just ask like a quick question about it. The characters. Do you feel they were written? How do you think the characters were presented in this?
I thought all the characters were interesting. I liked the fact that they come from so many different backgrounds.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all technically mages, but of varying degrees of expertise.
Yeah.
And motivation.
Yeah.
And they took time to basically explain just enough of each master, as you will, and their supporting cast, for what they had, if they have any. You get enough of a background on them that you can at least see them as like developed people, not just the bad guy, the hero, the anarchist, the whatever, I thought they were pretty well presented. I don't think there was anybody in there that was just cliche. I didn't find any cliches.
Even the most villainous of the characters, it's like you spend enough time with this character that you don't agree with it, but you kind of begin to understand it.
Well, you could almost take the Dungeons and Dragons personas map grid and apply it to these guys in terms of like which one's chaotic evil, which one's neutral good, which one's, and you could basically like line them up with that and pretty much so you have a good array of a good range of protagonist to antagonist spectrum. but none of them feel like they were like kind of jammed in there,
Yeah.
you know, like it was forced.
Yeah.
You get a couple of people that are there almost by accident.
Yeah.
You know, you got, you know, the one, you know, like you have a, you know, you got a neutral evil there, and then you got a chaotic evil who's really like there, doesn't even realize that he's there. What he's, you know, he just finds his way in there by accident, has his own agenda completely that has literally nothing to do with, you know, and it's it's almost like a Seinfeld Curb Your Enthusiasm level of ignorance that he has about the whole game as he goes on, just really wreaking havoc with everything and not even realizing that that's what he's doing. You know, which is almost a little funny if it wasn't for the fact that he was a serial killer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but that's the stuff I like, is the fact that there's a bit of chaos theory in this plot line. Yeah. You know, as soon as they get started, it kind of all goes haywire.
Yeah. And I'll also say this much: this differs from Bladeworks, where Bladeworks focused a lot on 4 characters in particular. Focused on Shiro, Rin, Saber, Archer.
Yeah.
And you had episodes here and there. It's like, oh, we're going to expound upon a little bit of Ilya. We're going to expound upon a little bit of Medea, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, it was about those 4 characters. Zero is an ensemble cast.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
Everyone gets, I don't want to say equal screen time, because that's not true, but everyone gets the stage for their moment. And, you know, everyone gets some sort of development. I would say probably the least developed of, like, the main characters, really, is probably Kenneth. I think is probably the least developed.
but
he's also kind of the most uninteresting.
But see, the thing is, though, he serves an important purpose, because he's, you know, he's the definition of the professional mage. You know, he's the guy who's like you know, you know, I've got my membership card to the Mages Yacht Club that you know that you guys don't have, and he's the groomed guy. He's going in there as like the, you know, he's the guy that everybody figures is the ringer. He's the one that if you're making book on it, he's the one that's getting the 3-2 odds.
Well, actually,
you know?
I would say Tokiomi's the one who would be the ringer, but yeah, aside from him, yes.
But that's what he presents himself as.
Right.
And you find out almost immediately that he's really kind of just a poser.
Yeah, he's just a narcissist.
Yeah, it serves an important thing to show, you know, the sort of like the shallowness and a bit of the hypocrisy of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because he goes in there and, like, you know, he's a great example of, like, you know, he highlights just how, like, someone like Kiritsugu or Kirei, what kind of real professionals they are. Because this guy who's groomed and billed as, like, the master of masters comes in there and he's almost immediately and completely over his head.
Yeah.
You know,
he's this 9th generation mage who's a professor at the Clock Tower Academy, the Mages Association school. He's, you know, this kind of like hoity-toity, oh, I am mage TM, I do this for a living. And then the only other mage that is oh, I am a mage fundamentally is Tokiomi, and he doesn't behave the same way as Kenneth, because Kenneth is like, oh, I'm going to prove that my mage bloodline is the best. Yeah. Where Tokiomi is like, I'm winning this war because my family started this shit and I'm gonna end it. Yeah. You know, and it's like,
but that's like, it's like, it's a men from the boys, but he serves as a great contrast to that.
And it's cool how you have 2 mages who are both like, oh, these are both fundamental mages to their cores, but even the fact that they're both still archetypical mages, they're still so different from each other.
Yeah.
So it's like literally every character is so unique, and not one single one of them fits into like this neat and clean, tidy little stereotype mold. Because even like these 2 characters that on the surface, if you read their descriptions, you read their resumes, you'd think they'd be the exact same.
Well,
are so different.
But that's the beauty of it, though, because it goes, for Kenneth, it goes so wrong, so fast, so badly.
Yeah.
That it, you know, you, like I said, that real worldism that's in it, and that's what happens to him. It's like it's the same, and it draws a contrast between the ones that are taking the real world people that are taking this really seriously and doing it, you know, treating it for what it is, which is a war, rather than this the culmination of my this is how I get my crown. Kind
it's
of
not
thing.
it's not a Grail contest.
It's basically the same thing as like if you took Harry Potter and you dropped him in the middle of fucking Red Hook. Well, back in the 80s, or drop him in the middle of Detroit at night, okay? Yeah. All the Wingardium Leviosa in the world isn't going to help him when he's catching a lead pipe across his head. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. All the magic in the world isn't going to save you from getting knifed.
Yeah.
So it's just, and that's the beauty of that character. He gets schooled on how it works in the real world.
I'm just imagining Harry getting jumped now in Detroit.
Exactly.
Or in the Bronx, and he's just like, hello?
Yeah.
Where's your water?
Well, his is up his ass right now. That's my point. It's like, and that's the beauty of that character, is the fact that, like, yes, there's all this, like, you have your mage, you have your sorcery, you have your servants, everything like that. But you know what? When the real world decides it wants to eat you, it's gonna eat you. And there is, all the spell books in the world aren't gonna save you if you can't handle yourself.
Yeah, it's the 20th century. It's the end of the 20th century. Get with the times.
Right.
Everyone has guns.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the beauty of that character, is the fact that this, he's an example of how, like, this is a fantasy story taking place in the real world, so you're gonna get real world results.
Yeah.
And real world consequences, and that's what happens to that guy. Great. I mean, to jump ahead, like that scene, one of my favorite scenes of the whole series is when he's basically in his hotel and he's got it bugged out to the max with every possible magical spell and enchanted monster you could think of, so that no one will be able to I am the great Sauron. No one can get into Mordor. One does just not walk into Mordor, kind of thing. And he's all ready to go, and all they do is blow up the building on him.
Yeah, they just drop him 150
Yeah, that's fine. We've wired the whole thing with Semtex. We're just going to flick a switch, and you're going to wind up in 50 tons of rubble, which is what happens.
It is
and it's
phenomenal.
like, we're not even going to bother with the magic. We're just here to kill you.
Yeah, it's like, what? I don't care, man. Like, I don't care.
It's like,
you can be sitting there like, yes,
well,
come
you know what?
for me.
It's like, what? You're right. Pop. I don't have the spell book or the I don't have the magecraft to be able to beat you with this. So I'm just going to, blow you up.
Use a gun.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kill
or
you.
a bomb or a car.
Yeah, I'm not here to duel you. I'm not here to see which one of us has the bigger I'm not here to see which one of us has the bigger wand. I'm just here to kill you. That's what I'm going to do. You can cast all the spells you like.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the entire Fate series overall.
It's so
because it's just done. That's your Raiders of the Lost Ark moment right there.
He's such our protagonist is such a cold pragmatist. He's such a no bullshit, results first.
He's actually one of my favorite anime characters across pretty much any of the anime that I've seen. He's up there with, Spike from Cowboy Bebop.
I was just about to say, from everything I've seen, he reminds me of.
Yeah, from like any of them from. Yeah, I mean,
Spike from Cowboy Bebop.
but like Spike, or like Mugen and Jin from Samurai Champloo, or like even, I mean, I'm not great with names. I remember them because I just saw them recently. But it's just, any of the characters, the Major from like Ghost in the Shell, just some of the big ones, and there are others that I've seen like ages and ages ago, like what's his name, Colonel Roy there, the fire alchemist from Full Metal Alchemist, that guy.
Oh yeah.
Colonel Roy or something like that. Is like that guy, like those characters that are just like. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to dig back into a deep memory here, but he's just one of those characters that's like, he's so well developed and he's so well presented that it's just, and he's just got such a style to him that I just, I'd watch Zero again. He's the main reason I like Zero better than I like Blade Works, because he's just. He's this character where it's like you've got everybody on the board going from left to right, trying to win the game trying to win the Grail according to how the Grail War is traditionally fought. And then you have him cutting from like north to south, right across everybody's trail, doing it his own way.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, this is how you guys want to play it? Well, this is how I'm going to play it. And I'm going to, You guys.
I brought a machete to get through this faster.
I brought a gun to a knife.
Yeah,
fight,
he brought he's the asshole that brought the machete into the corn maze.
Yeah, exactly. He did. But that's it.
It's like you'll never find your way out of the hedge maze, and some guy comes out with a weed whacker. Like, yo, was I not supposed to do this?
Yeah, but that's exactly it though. He brings a gun to a knife fight.
Yeah.
It's just it's name your cliche. He's playing chess while the rest of them are playing checkers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's planned it out. He's done his research. He's planned it out. Not just like, do I have the best spells to beat the other guys, or can I get the best, can I get the best servant? He's like, no. What do I have to do to beat each of these guys? And that's what he looks at.
And one of the cool things about him too is like he knows he's too weak as a mage to compete as a mage. So he's like, okay, then I won't.
It's the strategist that I like. He's like, I know what my strengths are and I know what their weaknesses are. That's what I'll focus on.
I'll play to that.
And it works.
He's one more comparison to a character in Bladeworks is you can very easily look at the way Archer composes himself in Bladeworks. He's playing chess. Everyone else is playing checkers. He went in there with his own agenda. He's the smartest dude in every room he walks into. That's his most dangerous weapon.
The thing about Bladeworks is like the beauty of that is like you don't even learn about that agenda until the very end. And that's the thing with Bladeworks is that's presented really well. Because you're always wondering, like, this guy's the worst servant ever. What is he doing?
He's such an asshole.
You're always kind of wondering, like, with Archer, it's like, what the fuck is he up to? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And you kind of dismiss it as, like, he's just kind of disgusted with the fact that he doesn't like his master.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Or that he doesn't like being a servant.
Or both, really. And, but it isn't until the very end you find out what's really going on, and then you immediately rewind the entire series in your head. And you realize, shit. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of that. But yeah, exactly. It's just, but a large part of the plot line in this is following Kiritsugu through his strategy, enacting his plan, following his tactics, and it'd be like if
Bladeworks was told from Archer's perspective.
But the beauty of this is you basically watch him pretty much dismantle 5 out of the 6 other servants. He really does.
Yeah,
and he does it pretty systematically. Yeah. It's impressive.
And even there's a moment where he's sitting him by. I love this. For whatever reason, every time I remember this scene never stuck with me. I never really remembered this particular scene until rewatching it this time. There's a scene where he's sitting in a motel room by himself with a cheeseburger in one hand and a lit cigarette in the other hand, and he's looking at a map on a board with people's faces pinned to it, and he's just going, well, I could kill him next, but he's no real threat right now, so I guess I'll keep him alive. His servant could be useful for pissing somebody else off. I could kill him, but I don't know. Those magical barriers are kind of a bitch. All right, maybe I'll hold off on him. This guy's going to be a problem, and he's kind of hard to track. I really got to figure out what's going on with him. And he's just going through down the list. He's like, who to kill next? And it's just like...
And how to do it.
This cold rationality of like, just like... just cigarette in one hand, burger in another, trying to decide who to murder next.
But that's the beauty of it. But you think of it, just... suspension of disbelief. Say this kind of stuff actually took place in the real world, and you found yourself, in a situation where, this actually is taking place. If you had to find a real world solution for this kind of a problem,
hire him.
Basically hire him, because that's the beauty of the show is you have Kiritsugu, applying real world strategy and real world solutions to what's essentially a magical problem.
As Todd Howard would say, it just works.
Yeah.
Except in this case, it actually does just work.
Yeah.
Unlike that. Anyway.
And I think that's what really sets this show apart for me from pretty much any of the other Fate stuff that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it's I don't want to say plausible because you're still dealing with like myths and legends and swords and sorcerers and stuff like that. But within that realm, it has a degree of
every character that like
it's
acts
plausibility
like they seem like they
to
should.
it, you know? Yeah, plausibility to it.
So as far as the setting, pretty simple. It's technically begins the very first scenes you see. The preparation begins in 1986, which is 8 years prior to the start of the war, and you really have characters. I mean, namely, the protagonist who's Kiritsugu. You have Kiritsugu preparing for this war for about a decade leading up to it. And and then you have the war itself taking place in like 1994, over the course of, let's say, a week to 2 weeks. I think it's a little bit less time than Blade Works took place, because Blade Works was a lot slower in terms of what happened. A lot of it was taking place in high school, so they were doing battles like, oh man, like I got so much homework, and then I gotta like kill some masters, and then I gotta come back to school tomorrow. Like, whereas in this one, none of them are going to school. They're just like, I'm here to kill people.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Blade Works, like you said, they started preparing in 1986. You had other families, they were probably preparing well in advance of that, finding the relics. What they're going to do, things like that. So by the time the scheduled Grail War was going to start in 94, everybody was tooled up and ready to go.
Yeah.
Blade Works, it came, 55 years early,
50 years early,
50 years early. So, the people that you had in it, they knew they were, maybe they were going to be lucky enough, but I mean, look at Rin. At her age, her goal was really to basically prepare her kids to fight it. She was never going to live long enough to fight it. She never expected to be in it.
Yeah.
So you have it. It's a little more scattered. People that are in it that didn't even know it was a thing until they got into it. So
like the protagonist.
Yeah. So it's like sure, you don't like him yet. So it's going to be like scattered around in a little more, in a much smaller scale. People trying to like just figure it out as they're going. This is the actual
these are the
war.
Professionals. Yeah. Who prepared for this for most of their lives and knew this was coming.
Yeah, so this is an actual. I mean, it's supposed to be anyways, but it goes off the rails pretty quick through,
Yeah.
But everybody's up and ready to go. These are the big boys. These are the actual pros doing it. This is what it's supposed. This is how it's supposed to work. So it's much more focused. It's a shorter term. It's much more intense in terms of. How quickly they find each other and they go after each other with stuff.
Which is also why I like. Why I like watching Blade Works first, because it's like, oh, this is this thing, and then you watch Zero and you're like, that's how that shit's supposed to go. Oh fuck. So
and that's the thing I like about it too, is like, because it would almost be like, the smaller scale, the smaller scope, the more intimate setting for Blade Works would almost feel a little anticlimactic if I watched Zero first.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing wrong wrong with it if you do that. It's just a personal preference thing.
Yeah.
So.
I also like that most of the mages in it don't come from Japan.
Yeah, they don't.
They come from all over. You have, just to name a few, in the very first episode, you have characters coming from Germany, the UK, and Italy. All just within the first episode.
Yeah.
And, it's like, it shows that it's like, yeah, it may be this thing that only 7 people are chosen for, but like these people are going to come from all walks of life, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier. They're all different people. They all come from different backgrounds. They all share one commonality, that's they practice magecraft to some degree. But besides that, they're all vastly different people who are all like found out about this through some means or another.
Yeah, you have the cat. You have like you have different all kinds of people from all walks of life are going to get on that plane that crashes on the island and lost.
Yeah.
And you kind of get that here. You get like, this happens once every 60 years. Only the best are supposed to show up to it, and you're not going to get all of them in one city. They're going to be from all.
Sir.
Yeah, exactly. But they're going to be from all over the world, and they're smart enough to show that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
There's actually, I think, only one actual Japanese person in it.
Well,
I think Tasaka's really the only.
No, because the Tasaka. No, actually, yeah. Even though this is so bizarre, I thought for a long time that the Tasaka family was German.
Because a lot of their spells are in German.
Half of their freaking magecraft is all German. Is all based on, And even like Rin's Gander shots and things like that, they're a Nordic curse.
Yeah.
Her all of their magecraft is like Germanic, Scandinavian type magecraft. But yet
that might have more to do with the Japanese obsession with their former Axis partners.
Well, no.
You know, the people that brought you like girls and
but then why are they the only family that does it?
I don't know.
So, but this is what I mean
it could be just their tradition.
I think what it is based on some of the more deeper lore reading that I've done. I know that the Tosuka family has been in Japan for at least the last 200 years. They are one of the families that started the Grail War, and they've been in Japan that whole time. I do think because the mage that taught the very first Tosuka, head mage, taught them magecraft, I'm pretty sure that mage was German.
Yeah, so it might have been handed.
So I think that probably a lot of the spells that got passed down were spells that were initially taught
that way.
But anyway,
I get the sense with all the Catholic symbolism in it, the fact that it's the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
All this, I get the sense that I get it. I get that the war was founded in Japan, things like that. But I think its deep origins, really would be Central European, anyways. And
the Einsburns are a German family.
Right.
I think as far as the Japanese characters.
Well, the Mataus too.
The Mataus, the Tosukas. Emiya is Japanese, Filipino in origin. I believe Japanese, but he grew up as a child. He lived in the Philippines for a little while. They fled Japan, he and his father. But they're Emiya, Matau, the Tosukas. And I think and probably that Ryuunosuke, Caster's master. I think he's probably Japanese, but we don't really know much about him.
Well, he would be. He's just he's just
some schmuck.
He's basically a cast extra from Death Note, essentially.
Yeah,
he's a random serial killer. Yeah. Who just. He's what really
stumbled into it.
He's a great the chaotic evil kind of thing, because he just accidentally stumbles into this and sends the whole thing completely off the rails without even meaning to.
So let's really quickly, just so that for any of you guys who either have not seen it in a really long time, or if you ignored all of our warnings and are listening to this without having fucking watched it, let's just run through really quickly, try to run through the cast of characters. Again, it's an ensemble cast. It's going to be a long list, so we're going to try to trim it down to one or two things about each character, but just so that you have an idea as to who's who, what the relationships are with each other. All right?
Yeah.
So I'll start us off because I want to. Kiritsuga Emiya. He is Saber's master. He is the protagonist. He is serving as the mage or serving as the master for the Einsburn family, because the family magics are not combat oriented enough for them to be able to win. So they hired him on, and he is a former assassin for hire who was known as the Mage Killer. And I guess one other note about him, I touched on it earlier, but he's a purely non-emotional pragmatist, and he's highly calculating and intelligent. Yeah.
He's a cleaner. He's basically what he is. He's coming in as the fixer.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Einsburns, his wife, Irisviel von Einsburn.
Von
Einsburn. You don't get much more Prussian than that.
You know the name, yes?
You don't. Yeah.
Shut up, Ilya.
You don't get much more Prussian than that. But she's his wife. She's basically an anime replicant. So she's a homunculus.
Yeah.
Got the 10-year lifespan. She is used by Kiritsugu to be sort of like the fake master.
Yes.
She's presented as the master for Saber, who they wind up with as their servant. But part of his strategy is that he doesn't want anybody knowing that he's the master, So he basically pairs her up with him, and they go around together, and she works with her.
Yeah.
Does all her servant stuff in her presence for her, while he's actually
behind the scenes
fighting what is essentially a guerrilla war against all the other masters.
Yeah.
But she's the other thing with her, though, is she's, as the homunculus from the Ainsburns, she's also the Grail vessel.
Yes.
Which means her lifespan is pretty much up at this point.
Yeah.
You know, her 10-year clock is kind of just about running out. But she's very much in love with Kiritsugu. She's basically bought in completely to how he sees things, how he wants to do it. And she's, you know, the reasons that he has for wanting to win the Grail, which are, you know, far more noble than you would think they really are. Far more idealistic and, frankly, far more naive than you really expect from him.
Yeah.
But as the show goes on, you learn why.
Yeah.
She's bought into all of that for him, and it's not just about, like, you know, the family tradition of winning the Grail. It's about it becomes something a bit more important for her.
Yeah. She wants to lay down her life to allow him to achieve his dream, so that also their daughter won't be roped into the next Grail War.
Yeah. This would make this Grail War the last Grail War. So their daughter, who they did actually have together, who does appear in Blade Works.
Who is Ilya from Blade Works. Yeah.
And you get a special sense, you know, before that you just thought she was the strange girl with the white hair who had a really gross ending. Now that once you watch Zero, you realize the sincere tragedy of that entire.
It's like you
family.
knew it was sad with that flashback episode she has, but it's not really until
really
you see
appreciate just
her life before
tragic.
the Fourth War.
Yeah,
you know,
it was just how brutally tragic it ends up for her.
Yeah.
And I retroactively developed a real problem with Blade Works for how they did that with her at the end, because once you learn about who she really was, but
Lisa still has not forgiven Gilgamesh for that.
No, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
But you know, he doesn't. You know,
but he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. So, but you know, Irisfil is her mom.
Yeah.
And she tries. So, but you know, part of it's really like, I guess, Team Ainsburn, I guess you could say.
Team Ainsburn, yeah.
Because Kiritsugu is not working. He actually goes in with a whole squad, of which, you know, the next one is his partner.
His partner, yeah. So Maya, they never say her last name, but her last name is Hisao?
I didn't know she had a last name. Hisao?
Well, I mean, it's not technically her damn name anyway, because it was a fake name that Kiritsugu gave her. And that's
the oldest name she could remember on her fake passports.
Yeah. So she's Kiritsugu's right hand, essentially, and his partner. She is a very skilled combatant who was found by Kiritsugu as a child soldier and taken in and trained to essentially become what he is. She feels her only purpose in life is to be a weapon, and she endeavors to be whatever Kiritsugu needs her to be, even if that is a weapon, a sacrifice, or a lover, whatever it is, she's that.
She's basically an appendage for him.
Yeah.
She's also like a... Yeah, she's just basically like a partner.
She's literally, when I say she's his right hand, she might as well be his fucking right hand. Like, she is just an extension of him. And she's damn good at it. Yeah. She's with frightening efficiency.
Yeah, she's very much his... She's his real partner. He might have married Irisfil. He might care about her. He might love Ilya.
Yeah.
But you know, the one that really knows him, knows who he is, has been with him for all these years.
Yeah.
You know, is really been Maya.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, next. Oh, yes. One of Lisa's favorite characters.
Carrie is just Father Kire.
Kire Kotomine.
Yeah,
Kire Daddy.
Yeah. But he's a great example of the kind of issues that Japanese culture in general has with the Catholic Church. He's a priest, but he's also the master of assassin, the assassin servant. He's formerly what's known as an executor, which the best translation for people that study history is he's an inquisitor.
Yeah,
he was what the inquisitors used to be in the Middle Ages, rooting out, you know, basically secret police for the church, rooting out basically anybody they wanted.
Yeah.
He's the same way. He's basically just the heretic hunter. Any magecraft, whatever, anything like that. They send him to get out of the way. He's the guy that does it. So
he was the church's version of what Kiritsugu was.
Yeah. So he's extremely skilled. He's basically a trained killer.
Yeah.
That works for the church, which, like I said, any of you guys, if you're not already familiar with it, read Shogun, watch, read your history, things like that. You go back to like the shogunate, the era of the shoguns, and when European expansion was coming into East Asia, Japanese culture and the Catholic Church didn't exactly see eye to eye. It didn't go well, and ever since then, Japan seems to have had an issue with how they interpret Catholicism, which is why the Holy Grail in this thing is. That's why they fight. That's why they fight wars over it, and they really ought to be fighting wars against it.
Yeah.
Highly intelligent. He's basically a pure psychopath.
Yeah, which
he's
is
like, and you kind of learn that over the course of the show.
As does he.
As does he. He doesn't. He's like so disconnected from basically any kind of human experience or emotion anyways, but he doesn't realize it until he gets deeper and deeper into this thing.
Yeah.
And suddenly discovers at the end that not only was he suddenly had this epiphany of like, oh my god, I am a real person. I'm also purely evil, and I'm just, and I'm like, I feel like I found myself.
I love genocide.
Yeah, the best thing about getting in touch with myself is realizing how much I love to kill people. It's like he's one of those. So by the end, you realize that he is the actual villain of this entire storyline.
Yeah, which a lot of people. Another thing too is he's another character that appears in Blade Works, and a lot of people hate the way he was portrayed in Blade Works, that they feel like they feel like he was just really done dirty. Like a lot of people really liked his character in this. They said he was a badass. He was an intimidating. He was a force to be reckoned with. And then in Blade Works, he's kind of just gets poked and he dies.
Yeah.
But this is where you get to see like anybody who talks about Fate, and if all you've seen is Blade Works, anybody who's like, oh my god, Kirai's so cool. I love Kirai, and you're like, mullet dude, really? This is why. Like,
yeah, this is why.
It's like why.
It to the point almost where like he really didn't get enough airtime in Blade Works.
No, he did not.
Because honestly, he should have really been. He suddenly at the end of this he realized himself that he's actually the agent of change that the Grail has been searching for.
Yeah.
But they really, one of the problems I have with Blade Works is once they got the Blade Works, they didn't really do anything with that.
Yeah.
They could.
Which is why the other timelines exist, though.
Yeah.
The Fate timeline and the Heaven's Field timeline, they expound upon that a lot more.
Yeah. But he's very much, and he is, and more key to the point is he's the only other character in this entire series that can go toe to toe with Kiritsugu. Yeah. And they do. And
Kiritsugu is terrified of him.
He knows because he knows
he's the only one he perceives as a real threat.
Yeah, he's the only one who perceives as a real threat. Because he's the only one that knows that can operate in the real world capabilities that he himself has.
As efficiently as he can.
That he himself has. The rest of them literally, if they can't cast a spell on it, then they can't hang with it.
If this guy cast a spell on it, they don't know what it is.
But that's my point. It's like the minute you present some of these other ones with a non-magic solution to the problem at hand, to the problem that they perceive you to be, you're gonna die.
Yeah. But
this is the one guy that is like, if you're gonna come at him with a gun, well, you know what? He'll come at you with one too.
Yeah.
You're gonna use a knife. He's gonna use the three that he can get the project out of his hand.
Black keys. Yeah.
Is that he's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And Kiritsugu knows all about him. But the interesting thing is that Kirai has heard of Kiritsugu, but he doesn't know who he is or anything about him. Really.
It's bizarre because they both know a lot about each other.
They know,
on the surface,
they know a lot about their reputations, but they don't know them.
Kiritsugu accurately guesses. He accurately guesses at what Kirai is.
Yeah.
Before Kirai himself even seems to know.
Yeah.
But Kirai.
Well, that's true for a lot of people, really.
But Kirai cannot, and before he even meets him too. But Kirai cannot. Because he's such a psychopath. He's so incapable of empathy, and he's so incapable of putting himself in somebody else's shoes or anything like that. He cannot figure out who or what Kiritsugu really is. He's like, oh, he must be just like me. He must be an empty psychopath just like me. But that's not what Kiritsugu is. Kirei's just like projecting that, oh, he must be like me because I'm like me.
Yeah.
And he's like me.
And the two key differences between them is the fact that they're both extremely effective at it. And they're the only two players in this that you really can take seriously.
Yeah. So next up, pretty basic character, we have Risei Kotomine, who is Kirei's dad. He's the overseer of the Fourth Holy Grail War and the previous one, the third one.
So he's fairly old.
Yeah, he's an older dude.
Yeah.
And he is a member of the Holy Church.
Also a priest.
Yeah.
Kind of the least developed of them, but he's there. He's basically every sport needs a ref.
Yeah, that's basically all he is.
So yeah, and then we have basically Rin's dad is all I call it. Because his Tokiomi is his name.
Yeah.
And I never pronounce it correctly. But I just know him as Rin's dad because, it's Rin.
It's Rin's
dad. But
Rin's the memorable one.
Yeah. He's, she is. He's the master of Archer, or at least he thinks he is.
He's summoned Archer.
Yeah, he summoned him, and he thinks he's working. But he's the head of the Tosaka family. He is an expert mage, and he's basically like, that's all he is. He is a passionate mage. He is the career academic, if you will.
Yeah.
His whole profession is basically just studying magecraft, and he's the guy. You hear about a lot of talk about getting to the root. He's the one guy that this for him is the way to the root.
Yeah.
Just simply for no other purpose than to expand his magecraft, to increase his understanding. It's the same reason. He's the resident scientist, if you will.
Yeah.
As far as the magecraft scientist, and he wants to do it for the sake of doing it.
Yep.
He's the one who's very tight with Kirei. He's got a lot of back channels with the church.
Yep.
He's a bit and he sees himself as a bit of a ringer.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he has so many friends in high places.
Yeah, because he like Kiritsugi, he kind of also goes in with a team, but he goes in with his team members are the overseer, another fellow master who's also the overseer's son, and
so basically his attitude is that I've got, because Kirei
and
is,
the most powerful,
because he's worked out a side deal with the church, that rather than have 7 true masters, they're going to have 6 and make Kirei the other master who's actually going to be working for Tosaka.
Yeah.
And so Tosaka thinks, now I've got the church backing me. I've got the referee making callings in my favor. Plus, I've got 2 servants.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's really that's a key difference between himself and someone like Kiritsugu. That is as far as Tosaka being nothing but a mage and living entirely in the world of magecraft can, envision his strategy. I'll just load up on servants. And meanwhile, you've got...
I'm just the most powerful one.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got someone like Kirei, or especially like Kiritsugu, is like, I just need to know when you're going to come out of your house. I'm going to put a bullet between your eyes.
Yeah.
And I'll deal with the servants later.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just, but with it, so it's a great kind of contrast. So within the beauty of it, getting kind of on a tangent here, but the beauty of Tosaka is when you first see him, you basically peg him as being the guy.
Yeah.
He's the odds-on winner to basically, the actual odds-on winner to basically win this thing by the rules of the Grail. And the beauty of this show is the fact that you find out pretty quickly that the rules of the Grail
don't fucking matter.
these rules that they learn about in Magecraft and Magic would be great if they lived in a world of Magecraft and Magic.
Yeah.
But this story takes place in the real world. So the real world very quickly intrudes on this entire thing.
Yeah.
And with damning consequences for most of them.
Yep.
So
next we have Waver Velvet. He is the master of Rider. His whole thing is he's determined to prove himself to be a powerful mage despite coming from a very young mage lineage. He's very hard-headed and somewhat arrogant, and his wish is to be treated fairly as a mage and to make all those who look down on him admit that they were wrong. He's kind of going into it with the most immature
he's a kid.
means.
He's a
Which
kid
is bizarre, because freaking college student, and Rin and Shiro in Blade Works are high school students. It's like...
You never saw Little Man Tate? You never heard stories about kids that, like, they go to college when they're 12?
Yeah.
He's one of those.
Yeah.
He's 14, 15 years old, and he's in college. Because he's brilliant. He is brilliant. But he's still trying to prove that he's, I'm a man, today I am a man kind of thing. He's just, he's overcompensating for a lot of things.
Yeah. Next up, we touched on him already, but...
Kenneth, professor, who is, by the way, Waver Velvet's college professor.
Yeah.
And he's
Kenneth Archibald L. Malloy.
Yeah, professor. And he basically thinks Waver is a complete schmuck and a waste of time because Kenneth in his own well is kind of a racist. Because because
he's
if
a racist against muggles.
Yeah, it's basically he's a muggle racist. Because if you don't come from if you can be a mage, but if you don't come from like one of the established bloodlines of mages, then you basically aren't really a mage as far as this guy's concerned.
Yeah.
So he shits all over Waver, even though Waver is actually like really thinking 2 steps ahead of all his other classmates.
Yeah.
He dismisses everything the kid says out of hand.
Yeah.
He's got it all planned out. One of the things that Waver gets into the game by basically stealing stealing Kenneth's artifact, stealing his talisman, and then he, it's like basically to show him. He doesn't even have an agenda. He just wants to show his professor that I could do this too. I'm just as good as you are.
Even Ryder, once he gets summoned, and Kenneth is like, "You were supposed to be mine." Ryder's like, "Yeah, but you're too much of a bitch to show yourself."
Exactly.
And it's like, yo.
Yeah, there's no way I'd work for you. But so he ends up becoming Master of Lancer, and
instead,
yeah, and he is,
and that works out great for him, right?
Yeah. But he's very much, but all his pedigree is pretty much all he's bringing to the table. But he doesn't realize that he doesn't. Like most posers, he doesn't realize what a poser he is until he gets into the arena with the real players.
Well, I almost entirely agree with you, but he's not all just talk. Because if you remember his Volumen Hydronia, whatever the fuck it is, his
oh no, he has skill.
Yeah,
but his ability to apply it on a level that'll. I know the ball, the
mercury ball.
Yeah, the rolling ball.
Yeah, he's got his mercury fucking pet that he has.
Yeah.
And that thing, he's scary effective with it.
Oh yeah,
and he does come close to like. Yeah, I mean, little does he know that Kirutsugu set a trap for him.
Right.
But he does come damn close to putting Kirutsugu, on the back foot to a degree.
But that's kind of my point though, is the fact that he comes in there. Is he talented? Yeah, he's talented, but he's the great example of how
too cocky.
Talent alone will not get you there.
No.
He's just basically his attitude is, I'm going to come in, use my magic, and just win because hey, I'm me.
Yeah, I'm just going to kill him because I'm just such a strong maid. I'm going to burst right through the front door with no plan.
Yeah,
and
stroll right into a trap.
Yep.
Like 3 times I think actually before it finally.
The friggin' claymores keep going off, and he's like, "Haha! I have my mercury. You can't stop me." And it's like, dude, why do you not realize this is like a terrible plan?
Yeah.
And then finally, Kirutsugu uses magecraft, and he's like, "What?
Yeah.
Someone else knows how to use magic?"
Yeah, it's like
Then again, Kirutsugu's magecraft is actually a pretty rare type. His time manipulation,
but this guy basically went in there not realizing that he had any at all.
Yeah.
And just because he never bothered to do. He's like, I'm going to show up and I'll just beat whoever comes past me because hey, I'm me.
Yeah.
And he's a great example of like, just how you just can't be a wizard. You gotta be. You gotta actually have to. You have to like know what you're doing, and he doesn't. I'm really good at spells. But he doesn't do a very good job of applying any of it. I mean,
he's also just not too bright, like in terms of his strategy, and we'll get into that. But
but snobbery breeds ignorance, which breeds stupidity. And that's the result you get.
Next character, another really pretty minor character, is basically just Kenneth's fiance. I'm gonna butcher this. I think it's Sola. I think it's how he pronounces it, or something along those lines. I'm not going to try to pronounce the whole name.
Sola-Ui Nuada-Re Sophia-Ri, whatever. I don't know.
Why do I feel like you just said something really offensive in Finnish or something
Well,
like that?
I probably did. Anybody out there's Finnish, yes, I apologize. It's a pronunciation thing. It's diction. I have bad diction.
Yeah, but
it's
basically she
Sula.
Yeah, she is Kenneth's fiance, and she serves as a second master of Lancer because Kenneth made a special contract where Lancer technically has two masters. So both he and his fiance are providing mana for Lancer, and that basically allows Lancer to use pretty much as much magic as much magic or as many times as his noble phantasm as he
Power up
wants.
his charges as much as he wants.
Yeah. Because he's got a really deep well to draw on in terms of magic. But one of the downsides to that is Lancer he's not a very, straining servant.
No.
His noble phantasms are pretty weak, all things considered.
Well, they're extraordinarily. His noble phantasms. He's actually extraordinarily effective with them.
He's effective with them, but they're You compare them to most any of the other servants' noble phantasms. I can create an entire world around me, or I can, I can use a thing that can evaporate buildings in one shot. And he's like, mine just makes magic stop, and then this one makes you hurt and you can't heal it.
Yeah, but you know what though? That's the thing. But in terms of straight hand-to-hand combat though, he almost beat Saber with it.
No. And I'm not saying
so
that
it's not bullshit. It's extremely effective.
But the thing is that's funny is that it seems like there's no goddamn point to him having made this special contract. Well, because he's not a magic taxing servant.
But that's kind of my point with Kenneth. He learned how to do that.
So he
just did it with no realization of the fact that
winds up
all he's done is he's given his own wife the opportunity to outmaneuver him as well.
Yeah.
He doesn't think like that. He's like, she's my wife.
She's my fiance. She'll never betray me.
She's my girl. He's my guy. They're both working for me, and because I'm me, I don't have to worry. I don't have to look at him twice. And he wouldn't think the fact that the two of them are going to shack up with each other and freeze him out.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, in fairness, Lancer doesn't try. She tries to shack up Lancer.
But
But that's because Lancer's cursed.
You know what? Wouldn't be the first guy to come home to see his wife with the pool boy. But, he didn't think of it. Yeah. It's just... But that's my point of, what the problem with Kenneth is the fact that, he creates the opportunity for her to outmaneuver him and basically take Lancer away from him.
Yeah.
It's just
how do you know? Anyway, so give me the command seals. I will never give you the command seals. Your broken fingers begged for...
Yeah, exactly, It's just... But the thing, though, he just doesn't... And then he's such a pompous ass about it that he just doesn't even... He just doesn't see it,
And then he constantly pisses off Lancer and shit too. It's honestly, he's lucky Lancer didn't just kill him. Because if Lancer had been a slightly less chivalrous dude, he would have had a fucking spear through his skull.
Oh, I'm sure.
And he would have deserved it.
He wanted to do it many a time. But they're barred from being able to do so. So next up is Karia Mato, and this guy's frankly a loser. I don't know. I can't really succinctly. I can't think of any other way to describe it.
I would deny that.
He's a born loser.
I would deny that, but honestly, he spends literally his entire fucking adult life simping over his fucking friend-zoned.
Yeah, the two little girls that should have been his daughters, kind of thing.
Yeah, he's simping over this girl. And he's like, "We're childhood friends. She should have been with me. She better leave her husband for me." And
meanwhile, this girl hadn't not only had she not seen him for years, but she hadn't really missed him either.
Yeah,
he's just, he was supposed to be the heir to the Matau family lineage.
Yeah,
but he didn't want to be a mage. He wasn't a very good mage. Didn't really want to be one. His father, grandfather, whatever that guy is,
Zoken is his father.
And
apparently, so Zoken at one point references, he's like, "Oh, you could have been the mage." Yeah. So he had probably not as much as a lot of the other masters, but he had the strength to do it, but he just didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care, so he left.
Yeah, he didn't, he basically walked away from the family lineage, so they replaced him, and then he couldn't handle being replaced. But then he couldn't handle with who they replaced him with, and
Yeah,
what they were,
yeah. I was gonna say
and what
it
they
had
were
nothing
doing
to do
to
with the
her.
fact that he was replaced.
And he had this like noble thing to like rescue her from this fate of being the new Matao
but really, like,
mage. But it just, but
it's
the problem,
fucked because it's like, and I'm sorry to like cut you off, but like, it's fucked because it's like he's like his goal seems noble. He's like, I want to save Sakura from having to suffer at the hands of the Matao mage craft because the mage craft sucks.
yeah, it sucks.
Literally in a lot of cases, but
not in a good way either.
No,
just
no,
not in a fun way.
Yeah,
just
so
really just
so he so it's like on the surface it's like, oh, he's trying to save Sakura, blah 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 blah. Which, oh yeah, by the way, Sakura and Rin are sisters, and like that's another thing you find out in Zero that you didn't know in Blade Works.
Yeah,
but Sakura was adopted in the Matao family because he left and they needed a mage, so they brought Sakura in. Blah. So at first it's like, oh, it's noble. He's trying to save her. No, he's trying to save her because he wants to bang her mom.
Yeah.
Like, that's
it.
Like, he's like, oh, if I protect your daughter, I'll be able to fuck you, right? And it's like, no.
Yeah. No, they get and because you learn it's like Sakura is with the Mataos because she wasn't kidnapped. They basically gave her away.
They gave
to
her
the Mataos,
up for adoption.
so because you can't have two mages in the same family, something whatever. But
Yeah,
but the problem is he's not a mage anymore. So now to go back to being a mage, he has to undergo this awful process, which basically
it kills him.
Basically kills him, but he doesn't. It kills him, but he gets to stay alive in his body, which is
watching it rot
which is
away
essentially an animated corpse at this point.
Yeah.
He's basically a sentient zombie at this point. So that he can be a vessel to serve as the master for Berserker.
Yeah.
Which in this I gotta say, like the Berserker in Zero is way cooler than the Berserker in Blade Works.
Yeah. Blade Works Berserker, Heracles is cool, but Berserker in this is really cool.
Interesting.
He's really neat.
And he's really berserk.
Yeah.
Like a berserk, like Blade Works Heracles Berserker was just sort of this stampeding juggernaut who would just flip out. But a berserker, there's an intense, deep, uncontrollable rage inside of a real berserker.
Yeah.
That's what makes them so dangerous and uncontrollable. And with the berserker in Zero, you get a real sense of that. Like he's so mad that he actually shivers. It's just
shakes,
at nothing.
shakes.
And that's his resting stance. That's him at ease.
His resting heart rate is 150 ppm.
Yeah. So, but seriously, when you see him standing there doing nothing, he's literally just like shivering with rage.
You can hear his armor creaking.
And
shit.
but every time he exhales, it's a growl. I mean, it's just like he is just the embodiment of insane madness. It's really cool.
Me too.
He's the angriest thing that's ever been drawn.
Yeah.
But Kiria ends up, and he basically just Kiria basically he most of the time he stays in the background, just sort of like letting Berserker kind of like just drop in every now and then.
All of his mana.
Suck all the, but and that's the problem though. It's like the thing.
Berserker's a super mana intensive.
He's like gas rat. I mean, he is just like he's like a 72 Chevy. I mean, you're only getting about 4 miles of the gallon with this guy. It's just
he gets the same gas mileage as a fucking Abrams tank does.
Pretty much
8 gallons to the mile.
Yeah, exactly. So he winds down quick, and he keeps having to get recharged in some fairly disgusting ways.
Yeah.
But he's just a mess. I mean, he's just a complete mess.
Half his body doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like
at this point,
and as the show progresses, more and more of it breaks down.
Yeah.
So by the end, he's pretty gross.
Yeah.
And he's
by the end he can't like walk.
By the end, you're praying for this guy to die just to put him out of his misery.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing.
And he is too.
Yeah, and then he gets killed, and then fucking Kira is like, no, watching this guy suffer got me all hot and bothered, so I'm gonna go bring him back to life so he can suffer some more.
Yeah, that's how I discovered, it's like, I'm gonna glue the wings back on the fly because it was really fun pulling them off the first time. It's like,
that's exactly what it is.
Awful. I mean, it's like if your only reason for existence is to basically let someone else become aware of how much they like hurting you, is just no way to live.
Yeah.
It's just... So it's like by the end you just want him gone,
His eventual death by getting eaten alive by worms
It's just a relief.
is
really.
just like, oh, thank God.
It just doesn't get it. But the thing is, though,
And Sakura just watches him go.
and could care less.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It does not register with her.
Bye.
But he is a great illustration of like the dark side of magecraft. Honestly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this is like you can explore it, but this is if you do it wrong, or if you get in over your head, or you go down a path that you shouldn't go down, this is where you're gonna wind up.
Yeah.
It's pretty dark.
Next up.
Speaking of dark.
Yeah. Next up, Zoken Matao. Yay! So he's the head of the Matao / Makiri family. He's one of the... he's... Not only is the Matao family one of the 3 families that originally summoned the Grail, Zoken himself was one of those 3 people that summoned it 180 years ago. He's kind of old. He's Karya's father. Gross. He's Sakura's adoptive grandfather. Gross. He wishes to acquire the Grail in order to grant himself eternal youth. And he seems to have no compassion or empathy for others, and he basically uses others as a means to an end. And he is highly vindictive and sadistic, and gets a lot of sick satisfaction from seeing Karya suffer for turning his back on the family.
Yeah, he's basically pure evil. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that he's like, he's at this point, he's barely human at this point.
Even Kirei is disgusted by him.
Yeah.
In that scene where he shows up and he's like, oh, you also like watching him suffer. He's like, get away from me, you weird fuck.
And even Kirei's like, not like you do. Like, you're getting off of this. I'm curious. I'm kind of fascinated by it, but you're like into this, and it's little. You're like kid, man. What the hell's wrong with you? You know?
It's like yeah, I've got this in my search history, but you've got this on a hard drive.
Yeah, like you have it in your favorites bar. You know, that's not cool, man.
This is not when you open a new tab. This is one of your suggested pages.
Safe for work means not safe for work. You know, it's just, but he's basically a vampire at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's been, because that's the kind of stuff he's had to do to last 180 years. But one of the things of being already 2 centuries old is the fact that you've seen generations of people come and go. People don't mean anything. People don't mean anything to you anymore. You know, which means, honestly, if people don't mean anything to you anymore, then nothing means anything to you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where he is. He's literally like, I'm just trying to get the Grail. Just so I can grant myself eternal youth again. Yeah, which is what I wanted to do in the first place, but I didn't get a chance to because I had 2 other people there not letting me do it.
Yeah.
So I've been trying for 2 centuries to get it back. Because the other thing too is he, frankly, since he's one of the original guys to summon it, he sees it as his Grail.
And he's the only one who's still around, so he's really the only one who remembers back then what really happened.
He would.
Because everyone else that was involved died.
Yeah, there's no history, and it's not in the history book, so it's really just
Although interestingly, actually, I'll save that for when we talk about Heaven's Feel, because there's some interesting stuff about like when they summoned the Grail.
I meant like general history books. Like you're not going to see a History Channel special on the first Grail War.
Yeah, but I was going to mention something about Zoken specifically and his involvement with summoning the Grail. But I'll mention that when we talk about Heaven's Feel.
But so he's not. He knows more than everybody else. He sees a bigger picture than everybody else, but only within the context of how it can serve him.
God damn, I wish fucking Kiritsugu had killed him.
Yeah. But honestly, with the way he is, I'm not entirely sure he can be killed. You know, I mean, I'm sure he couldn't be, but
I think if anyone could figure out how, it would be Kiritsugu.
Well, see, that's the one thing. That's the interesting thing about it. He might be the one guy that you actually need magic to kill. You know, a bullet's not going to do it for that guy because he can kind of just.
Well, if it was
he can just
one of his, but if it was
but he can do the Dracula thing and turn back into a fucking.
But if it was one of his origin rounds.
If you could hit him with it, I mean, whatever. But
well,
it's just
okay, this is
an origin round.
Batman could kill Superman.
An origin round is magic, though. That's my point.
Yeah,
it's like so. It's just one of those things. But yeah, he's what the old school. He's a vision of like how things used to be, the old school. You can imagine what the other 2 original mages were like, then probably. But
Have fun. Have fun pronouncing this.
Ryuunosuke.
You know what? That's actually pretty good.
Ryuunosuke Uryuu. Basically, he's the psycho killer.
The serial killer.
He's basically this like 20-year-old fucking lunatic, basically, and he's just you know, outside, just all things being equal, Grail War, no Grail War, Magecraft, no Magecraft. This kid's a serial killer, and he's out killing people for fun. Okay.
Children specifically.
He's out.
Specifically, children.
He's out murdering children for fun.
Yeah.
And through no intent of his own, he kind of stumbles across the means of summoning Castor.
He thinks he's summoning a demon.
Yeah, he thinks he's going to summon a demon, or something, the devil, whatever.
Yeah,
he ends up summoning Castor, and he thinks, oh my god.
At first, he's like, "Oh, you're a demon, right? Want to eat this kid that I have here?" Yeah. And he's like,
Castor's like, he's like, and
I'm here to win the Grail War, and he's like, "What?
What's a Grail?
The what?
Yeah,
a Grail. If it means I can kill people, then sure."
Yeah, and that's basically what he does. He's like he's Chaos Theory. He's the complete wild card.
Yeah.
And Castor, who is basically just as crazy.
Yeah.
Because of course you're gonna need to kind of have similar biorhythms to whatever you summon. So what does he do? Of course he summons one of the great serial killers from history.
Yeah.
So and as a caster, first thing he does is this guy takes this little kid that that's left surviving after this Ryuunosuke kid just murdered his entire family in front of him.
And then use their blood to draw the fucking summoning circle,
which kind of helped get him the result he was looking for. But the first thing they do is they basically like take the kid. It's okay, you can go out in the hallway and you can leave. As soon as he leaves, Cthulhu basically eats him, and they show it and they don't show it, but you hear it.
Yeah,
and it's pretty gross. And this kid practically wets his pants with excitement. He's like, "Oh my god, that's the best thing ever!
This is the greatest thing I've ever seen."
So then, rather than fight the Grail War, these two just go on a fucking rampage throughout the city on their own, and it gets so much attention.
Very nearly killing Rin, fun fact.
Yeah, and it gets exactly, and it gets so much attention that the church actually calls a halt to the Grail War to tell everybody to go get these two because they're throwing a monkey wrench into the whole operation. It's actually if it wasn't involving murdered children, it would be kind of funny. Instead, it's actually pretty scary and gross.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked. Anyway, and now we're getting into the servants. This will be a little simpler than the servants from Bladeworks because they're more straightforward. Let's just be frank. Saber. Saber's true identity is Artoria Pendragon and the King of Knights. She was summoned by Kurutsugu. Her wish for the Grail is to save Britain since she was unable to do so in her life, and she feels that others consistently underestimate her because she's a girl despite still being King Arthur.
Yeah.
That is one of her big things. It's like, oh, are they underestimating because of... And a lot of the characters do.
Well,
the thing is, she's like, oh, is Kurutsugu gonna underestimate me because I'm a girl? And then Ari's like, fucking no. Have you met his assistant? Well, have you met his fucking mentor? Like, no, they were all fucking women psychopaths. It's like, no. But then, she meets the other servants, and they're all like, yeah, little girl. And it's like, oh, fuck yourself.
Well, that's the thing. You think you summon King Arthur, you're expecting Clive Owen on a horse with, like, Michael Bay sound special effects. Instead, you get a kind of a...
You're expecting lens flares indoor with no lights on.
No, exactly. But you're expecting like, King Arthur, instead...
You get a 4'11"
teenage girl.
15-year-old girl with a fucking broadsword.
Yeah.
A broadsword that's invisible, but when it's not invisible, it consistently emits bright light.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Think like you conjure this. You're expecting, you're basically expecting Sean Connery with a crown and a sword or something like that, and you get this 15-year-old girl who's basically holding out her hand saying she's got Excalibur.
I swear
when you can't see anything. It's like what?
And then you see it, and it's a lightsaber, and you're like,
Yeah, but you can't see it at all. So like all you get in front of you is a teenage girl. You're like, did I step on a Justin Bieber CD when I was conjuring her or something? What happened? It's just, you know what I mean? Seriously.
Step on a Justin Bieber CD while I was summoning you. I'm fucking done. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, next.
So next up is Archer, and Archer is of course It's Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh.
It's the David Bowie of the ancient world.
King of heroes, king of kings,
king of everything. It's like basically king of everything. He has a great line in this that I got to throw out there that sums him up in a single sentence when talking about. He's like, "It's my grail anyways." Like, "Oh, you've had the grail before?" He's like, "Well, no, but I mean, I've got so many things on my hall of treasures that I don't even know what they all anymore. So I basically just assume if I see something, it came from the hall of treasures, so it's mine."
Yeah, he says that it's a treasure means it belongs to me.
So because it must have come from my treasure room.
Yeah.
So which is a convenient excuse to basically say I own everything.
Although it's true because the originals of all the Noble Phantasms did come from his armory.
Yeah. I mean, he basically says is like, you know, he's insulted just to be summoned.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where he almost doesn't participate in it because it's beneath him to do. So he almost
bored.
he almost so he risks losing by default because he thinks he's too important to play.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm not blocking that goal shot because frankly I'm too good to jump. It's like you're gonna get scored on. No, I'm not. I'm me. You know, it's just he's very.
They brought him a chair.
I don't.
Chair.
You know what? I don't want to be topical about it, but honestly, he's very Trumpian.
Oh God.
He
Yeah.
is,
I mean,
you know,
yeah.
But the problem is he actually is a king.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, he's Gilgamesh. He's the first king. You know, he's the first ruler of the first
hero.
He's the first, but I mean, even in history, he's the first ruler of the first civilization.
Was he the first ruler? I didn't think he was the first.
Probably not the first.
But he's one of the earliest rulers of one of the earliest modern civilizations.
Put it this way: he's the oldest one that anybody wrote down.
Yeah. That's what he is. Gilgamesh is the hero that belongs to the oldest known written legend.
Yeah, the Epic of Gilgamesh.
History.
Read the Epic of Gilgamesh. He's as far back as you can get.
Yeah.
Without basically conjuring dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So it's just so and he knows it. That's the problem. He knows it. So he's awesome until you get to the end of Blade Works. Then he sucks. So it's
such an arrogant douche.
Super arrogant.
Next is Lancer. His true. Oh fuck. Do you want to give?
You know what? I'm not up on my Gaelic.
Diarmuid Ua Duibhne. Oh fuck. Diarmuid Ua Duibhne.
It's Diarmuid Ua.
Jesus fuck. I should know. I should be able to pronounce this. I hear it enough. Anyway. His name's Diarmuid. And you find it? No. Are you gonna Google voice it?
I'm gonna try to.
This is gonna be phenomenal.
It's been done because it just came up as an autofill.
Well, yeah, because he's a servant from fate. All right,
ready? Let's see if we can do this.
Okay, make sure your volume's up. And put it next to the mic because I want to hear this shit. Oh God. Oh yeah, let's listen to this ad. Yeah, thanks for that. God damn it.
We're not actually like, you know, commercially supported here, so just ignore.
Yeah, no, like ignore the ad because they're not sponsoring us. I mean, although if they wanted to.
There we go.
The following pronunciation is brought to you by pronouncenames.com.
Oh my fuck.
I hate YouTube.
Diarmuid.
What's the rest of it?
Is that it?
Diarmuid.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Is that literally... We'll fast forward through the video and see if it's maybe...
No, it isn't. It isn't.
Oh my God. You know what? Fuck this. Okay, I'm not doing this.
No, hang on.
We have the correct pronunciation of your name.
Oh my God.
God. You're hurting me.
That's how hard it is to pronounce. Google can't do it.
Oh my God. Well, you looked on YouTube, in fairness.
I looked in Google, but the YouTube link is the only thing that came up.
You know what? Here. I'll do this. I'm going to Google Translate, and I'm going to translate from Scots Gaelic. Here we go. Ready? Are you kidding me? Speech output is not available for Scots Gaelic. Fuck you.
It should be Irish.
Diarmuid Ua Duibhne.
Diarmuid Ua Duibhne. That's what Irish sounds like.
That's the English. That's like
Diarmuid
that's how.
Ua Duibhne. That's like a Muppet name. I can hear Kermit the Frog pronouncing that. Diarmuid Ua Duibhne.
I'll try Irish. I'll see if it sounds better.
It's Irish. It's supposed to be Irish.
I know.
He's Irish, for God's sake.
Speech output is not available for Irish.
Because you know why? It's too
Fuck
hard to.
you.
It's too hard to pronounce.
Okay, all right. I give up. Anyway, so his name. Fuck, I lost my notes.
Okay,
now.
wait a minute. Hang on. I'm gonna try.
No, we're done. We're done with this. We
I'm
have
gonna
to
try the phonetic. See if I can.
God damn it. I don't know if I care anymore. I kind of just.
I do. It's our heritage. We have to.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it only. That's the first name.
All right. So anyway, Lancer, summoned by fucking Kenneth, and he's one of the Knights of.
Fen.
Is it Fen?
That's a Fen.
Okay.
I don't know.
I've heard it.
I don't think it's like pronounced letter for letter.
It's probably
I think
not.
I think it's the Knights of Fen.
Is it?
I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well.
I'd try and look it up, but we're not having a lot of luck.
Yeah, no, we're not having a lot of luck. Apparently, Google can't speak Irish.
No.
He's one of the Knights of Fen, and he was in his legend. He basically, the king's wife fell in love with him, and they eloped.
Because he has the prettiest pimple in the world,
Yeah,
or something like
he
that.
is the most beautiful. It's the love spot. It's his cursed love spot. You know, that cursed love spot.
Yeah.
So he has a mole on his cheek that
is enchanted.
is enchanted or cursed or whatever, and any woman who sees it will fall for him. Except Saber doesn't, because as one of the 3 great knight classes, she has magic resistance. But that's why Kenneth's wife basically is all hot and bothered by him, and is like, he's mine.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He's like, yo, I'm just trying to fight a good fight, and she's like, you mean fuck me? And he's like, no, that's not what I said.
He gets that. It's you can tell the sort of sigh and eye roll way he gets about it, that he's pretty tired of that pimp. That
that love spot. Yeah,
that birthmark.
You think he just wear a goddamn Band-Aid over it or something?
Anything, But it's
put on a mask.
Whatever, patch it, whatever you gotta do. But it's just grow your hair along and just kind of comb over or something. I don't know. But it's have
a beard.
Or a beard, still, yeah. But it's But yeah, I mean. She basically gets one look at the guy, and all of a sudden she steals him, and then doesn't even care about the grill war. She's just trying to find a way to get him to marry her, or some crazy thing they want to run off together or something. It's
a little bizarre.
Again, poor planning on Kenneth's part.
Yeah. Well. And his noble phantasms basically are Ge-Derg and Ge-Bule, which
Bolg.
No. Bolg is.
Bolg's the other. Who's the other one?
Yeah. Ge-Derg and Ge-Bule, which are, I don't know what they mean, but one of them basically is able to kind of negate magic on anything it strikes, and the other one is able to inflict wounds that never heal. So he is able to use one to bypass Saber's magically woven armor. So basically, if he strikes her with it and she's wearing her magic armor, it goes right through it. And it doesn't even pierce the armor technically, it just ignores it.
Yeah.
And then the other one, Ge-Bude, is the one that causes wounds that never heal. And that, early on he winds up
catches her in her left hand.
Yeah, he hits her left hand. He hits her tendon on her wrist.
Yeah.
So she can no longer move her thumb at all.
Yeah.
And that winds up causing her not to be able to utilize her noble phantasm or anything like that.
But it also, I think, but the sense I got too is the fact that the nagging injury of that is also just a mana draw on her.
Yeah,
it kind of keeps her at getting the full strength on anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's got some good. He's talented with what he uses, but what he has is not very strong. It wouldn't be strong in the hands of like most other servants. Like especially if you compare it to like look at the other Lancer we had, which Irish Heracles basically. It's frickin' Cuchulainn, who's the child of light, whose spear rewrites time to always strike for the heart. Versus
considered the greatest warrior. He's considered the greatest warrior in Irish mythology. But you got to remember, Waver stole his talisman.
I know.
This is like he's like a sort of like he's a last minute
bench. He was on the bench. Yeah. He's a bench warmer.
He's a late addition. He's sort of the consolation servant. I mean, it's like he's not going to be that powerful because it was like he was all they could get at the last minute kind of thing.
He was supposed to have actually the next servant on our
rider, which is it's Iskandar is his name. He's Alexander the Great. Yep. And actually, he's one of my favorites in this because
King of Conquerors.
He's Alexander the Great. And anybody that's sat through 5th grade history knows who that is.
I don't know about that anymore.
or used to anyways. But Waver is the one who ends up summoning him. And they make one of the great teams on any of the Fate series because, he's presented as this massive. I mean, like
probably like
7. He clears 7 feet easy in both directions. Height
he's
at
almost as big as fucking
shoulder.
Heracles.
He's basically a white-skinned Incredible Hulk with a big red Scotsman's beard. Why he has red hair, I don't know. He's Macedonian for God's sakes. But he shows up and he's immediately like. He's the most fun of any of the servants you'll ever see anywhere at all. He shows up and he just falls in love with the world. He television,
TV, video games.
First thing he wants to do is hit a bar. I mean, he's just like he gets himself a PlayStation. He's watching. One of the best exchanges, he discovers television. He's just learning about the world.
War VHS tapes.
Yeah, but he's watching the news and he's like, to date it basically to set it in like the mid 90s. Like he's talking about like, oh man, this Clinton guy's a real threat. Look at all these bombs.
Yeah, he's talking about he's like, oh, I need a couple of these B2 bombers.
We should go out and get some of these, right? Let's go out today and get some of these.
And Tomahawk missiles. He's talking about getting B2 bombers and Tomahawk missiles. Yeah. And he's like, but this Clinton guy is gonna be a real problem.
This Clinton guy's gonna be a problem because being Alexander the Great, the first thing he wants to do is he wants to go, all right, what country we're going to invade? It's like,
conquer the world again.
Slow down. It's like, I'm one guy.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because he ends up kind of like, they have an interesting dynamic because it's not just servant master. It's like, he sort of takes this kid under his wing a little bit.
Yeah.
Waver kind of teaches him a little about how the modern world works, and he teaches this kid to kind of like grow up a little and have more confidence in himself.
Yeah.
It actually ends up being like this kind of subplot that's really kind of sweet.
Yeah, it's honestly, he serves as like a role model, like almost like a parent to him.
And he's a great juxtaposition.
Because Waver's so immature.
Yeah. But as far as like the other 3 rulers that are summoned between Gilgamesh and King Arthur, he's the one. He's a real person.
Yeah.
Gilgamesh probably was too, but you don't know the outcome.
Yeah, and King Arthur, there's
a whole,
indications that
there is a whole host of ancient Celtic and British tradition, Britain traditions, oral traditions that have been amalgamated into like of different tribal chieftains that have been amalgamated into King Arthur. But the actual character of King Arthur, it's all literature. It's not real. But Alexander the Great was a real person. But you get from him. He's the one that calls bullshit on Arthur's chivalric nobility and like how it's all about sacrificing and how you have to be apart from and above all of your people because you're doing all the work for them, you're doing all the feeling for them, you're doing all the sacrificing for them. You have to be alone all the time. It's like they're here to worship you but not be like you. They're you're better than they are, blah blah. And he just calls bullshit on all of it when they're he first of all one of the first things he does when he interacts with the other servants is he basically gets them together to go drinking.
Well, no,
You
one
know,
of the first
it's
things he does is he immediately interrupts a fight between Saber and Lancer, tells everybody his true name,
Oh, yeah.
demands to know everybody
That's
else's
right.
name,
That's right.
then
He's like,
tells
"How you
all
doing?"
the other servants that he knows are all hiding and watching the fight to come out if they're not pussies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. He just shows up and he's like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah,
you know, and he's just...
And then he tries to get everybody to join him, and then Berserker shows up and he goes, you know, I don't think this guy really, I don't think he's up for negotiating.
It's like, so that's a no then.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. Even I think I don't remember if it was Gilgamesh or if it was Lancer, but they go, Berserker shows up and he goes, so what? You gonna proposition to him too? And he goes, he doesn't really seem up for talking right now.
yeah, he doesn't look like he wants to talk.
He's just shivering in the
Yeah.
corner, like looking around.
I think it was. I forget which one it was. But the thing is though, it's like, but to him, it's just kind of what they do. There isn't any kind of like stakes to it. It's just it's for its own sake. And he has this great exchange where he basically gets together with Saber to just
Saber and Archer
and Archer and to basically just have like a few drinks and to just kind of chat
because they all claim to be king.
Yeah, they all claim, so he wants to get to know them better, and but she goes into her whole like chivalric Joan of Arc kind of thing, which frankly there's a lot of Joan of Arc overlap with this interpretation of Arthur.
Well, it's also
but
interesting. It's interesting too because she only chimes in after those two go back and forth.
Yeah.
Because Gilgamesh is like, well, it belongs to me because it's treasure. And he's like, well, I'm going to steal it because I steal things. And it's like, oh, well, I'll kill you then.
Well,
it's like, maybe you will.
Well, that's basically what his attitude is. Like, Gilgamesh is like, I own all things because all things came from my treasure vault. And Iskandar is kind of like, oh, you mean the treasure vault that I'm going to break into and rob,
raid,
steal everything out of, because that's what I do. I'm a conqueror.
Yeah.
And they go back and forth with it, and she goes into this whole chivalry, and he calls bullshit on it. He said, and then he shows them, like, this is what our true leader is, and he shows them his noble phantasm which is to summon which is to summon his armies. And true to life, from what I've read about Alexander the Great, is like he was a commanding general, led from the front, fought alongside his men, and they were devoted to him.
Yeah.
He said the king isn't something you set apart and set above and isolate yourself from your people. You are your people.
He says
you live and breathe and just experience everything with them, and they experience everything through you. And they devote themselves to you, and you devote yourselves to them, and it's like, you lead from the front kind of thing, and it's just, and then he showed it, I just thought it was like, he just kind of called bullshit on her whole like self-righteous attitude about it.
It bothered me though. Like I think what I like about that scene is it displays different ideologies, but it doesn't necessarily say any one is more correct than any other. Because she has a good point about calling him out. Like, you yourself are saying, like he raises good points, but she's also like, a king serves their people.
Yeah. She's
like, a king serves their people. A king has to do what's right. A king has to be there, and a king has to first and foremost, Britain fell under me. It is my responsibility to do anything I can to save my people, and that's what I need to do. But then his ideology is, no, a king doesn't serve their people. A people serve their king. A king is supposed to be separate. A king is supposed to be the thing their people strive to be.
Yeah, well, the key difference is, like, she says basically, the king has to serve the people, and he basically says, no, the king has to lead the people. And he said one of the reasons Britain fell is because you were too busy serving them instead of leading them.
Yeah.
So once you were gone, they didn't know what to do, and it all just kind of collapsed.
Which is ironic because that's exactly what happened
to him.
Yeah.
Well,
and
she called him on that, and he said, "Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because that's what's supposed to happen. But while I'm king, we won. We led, and we we're on the top. Now the point, the undertone of both of this is like they're both cults of personality.
Yeah.
They're both wrong.
Yeah.
Really. But it's just,
and
it's which way they want to be wrong.
He says to her, I have a couple quotes written down. He says, because she basically, he says, "You, the king, are a slave to what's right," and she said, "Yes." And and he says, "So you'll martyr yourself for your ideals, but who can truly admire a martyr's thorny path?" And then he refers to her as a little girl enraptured by a false idol of a king who serves others but not themselves.
Yeah.
And his whole ideology is like, a king needs to be the thing that their people want to become but can't. Like, he needs to rage harder, he needs to laugh louder, he needs to drink more, he needs to fuck more, he needs to do everything
bigger, better, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
But in her position,
and her position is no, I need to be righteous, I need to be good, I need to be the pinnacle of all things good, and as some of the other characters refer to her, saintly and good.
But that's the problem. I need to be the example that all of my people know they can never live up to.
Yeah. But it's funny because they both did that. They both became a thing that all their people could never live up to. But she's like, I need to set the most morally pure example possible. And he said, I need to be the extreme of all things, good and bad.
Yeah.
And
the fact of the matter is that, like...
And then there's Gilgamesh. No, but just like, everything belongs to me. Fuck you guys.
Including people, they're all just possession.
Including every woman that lived in my city. Because literally, Gilgamesh implemented prima nocta.
Yeah.
And what?
but the thing is, like, the fact is, like, you both wound up with the same results, though. Because, like, if you want to really serve your people have to be able to make their own decisions. It's like the real... The undertone, the punchline of all of that is the fact that it's like, if you guys were true leaders, you'd empower your people to be able to, like, lead themselves in case you weren't there anymore. And the fact is, when neither one of them were there anymore, people didn't have an example to live up to. So you turned into anarchy. After Alexander died, his generals divided up his empire, and then they went to war with each other.
Yep.
And then it all collapsed anyways. It's just...
He did have a couple of good gotcha moments with her, though, because he's like, oh, blah, 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 like, a king, the people serve their king. It's their job to be devoted to me. And she's like, those are the words of a tyrant. And he goes, yeah, no shit, we're
That's what a king is. A king is a tyrant. That's basically what he said. A king is a tyrant.
A king is a tyrant,
you rule absolutely over everyone by edict.
Yeah.
That makes you a tyrant.
Yeah.
Just because you want to be a nice tyrant doesn't mean you're not still a tyrant.
Yeah.
So he just...
And that's one of the things I love about it. Again, it's about that conflict of ideologies.
Yeah.
But, we'll try to bang through the rest of these.
More on that later.
What, me next?
You next.
Hell yes. All right. Yeah, fuck you. No.
Yeah, really.
Berserker. I'm kind of surprised I didn't put him last because he's kind of the one that you sort of find out about last.
Yeah.
But Berserker. Berserker is an enigma through pretty much the entirety of Zero. You do not know who or even really what Berserker is.
He's just this, like, black glowing armor of rage.
He's this malevolent,
but, like, he's so
force of nature. Like he's literally rage incarnate.
But he's so pissed off. He's actually smoking. Like it's like he's covered in this veil of black radiant smog.
The black mist around him it's a concealment curse that basically means that no other servants or masters can
learn who he is.
So like even when normally
the key to
normally a mage is able to look at a servant and is able to tell basic things about them.
Yeah.
Like when in Blade Works when Rin observes Heracles and is like, oh my god, that servant's stats are off the charts. Like, oh my god, like that in terms of power, in terms of strength, in terms of combat,
it's
effectiveness. But then, when Ryder looks...
history, you can narrow it down.
Yeah, when Ryder looks at, sees Berserker, he looks at Waver and he's like, oh, what kind of servant is that? And Waver's like, I have no idea. He's like, what? How can you not tell? You're a master, right? And he goes, there's something about that I cannot tell what it is. And...
Yeah, none of
one, and I think Irisabel or one of the others says he's got basically a curse that
it's
conceals
like
everything.
You're
about
looking
him.
at him, all you're seeing is like a black shadow. Is
Yeah.
basically all it is. You can't.
Is
tell.
a silhouette with red glowing eyes, basically.
They can't see. They can't
And
even tell what he is.
Everything he grabs becomes his noble phantasm. So anything he touches becomes his weapon.
He pisses off everything he touches, basically.
Yeah, and that becomes particularly interesting at a few moments. One of which being where some fighter jets arrive to stop something that Castor summoned, and he jumps on the back of one of the fighter jets and possesses the jet as his weapon and starts chasing Gilgamesh around in it.
Yeah,
Which Gilgamesh has a spaceship. Don't ask questions. And then the jet gets destroyed, but because the jet had a Vulcan minigun as one of its armaments, he's able to pull that out of the wreckage and then use that as his fucking weapon.
He rips the 30mm cannon out of the jet and walks around with it like Jesse Ventura from Predator.
And then
it's awesome.
and then later on, there's a moment where he's fighting fucking Saber in a parking garage, and he's got a Barrett 50 cal, and then when I think she cuts the barrel off of it or something, and she's like, "Hi, he's disarmed now." He suddenly pulls a goddamn MP5 out from behind him and just starts lighting up the room. It's like, what are you? He uses a section of light pole that he chopped.
Yeah.
In order to almost kill Saber. He
he's
steals one of Gilgamesh's swords to fight. He almost steals Excalibur from Saber at one point when she goes to strike at him with it, and he grabs it out of midair right in front of his face.
Because he can see it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He's the best berserker because he's so fucking out of control. He literally weaponizes everything he touches.
Yeah.
Like, he could grab your Gatorade bottle right now and probably turn it into a lethal weapon.
Probably. Come on.
But I mean,
give him more
seriously.
credit than that.
No, but I'm seriously, he could probably kill you with a napkin. I mean, it's just, he's so out of control that it's just. But as soon as he gets into the game, though, he just gets more and more he does,
the more angry he gets.
The more pissed off he gets. So it's just this like.
It's a snowball of rage.
It's a chain. It is. It's a chain reaction of rage that he just gets madder and madder and madder. So he gets crazier and crazier and crazier.
He gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
But the image of the fighter jet is just that. He's riding the back. And meanwhile, the poor pilot's in there like, what the fuck do I do?
He's stuck in there because the jet's basically taking control.
So he's grabbing, like he's on the outside of the jet. He's got both of his hands dug in it, and his hand staring the jet.
And he's also got these weird tentacle things that come out of his back and lock onto the wings on it too.
He's just absolutely fucking just.
And he's got this
shit crazy.
And they even they make a special point to point out how ridiculously nimble he is and fast, because at one point Gilgamesh goes to shoot him with his Gate of Babylon, and all you see is the swords flying at him and then an explosion, and then you see him standing there afterward.
Yeah.
And then Ryder's like, "Oh, did you not see it?" And he basically makes a point, and it slows it down so you can see it. Makes a point to say that the first sword almost hit him. He Matrix leaned out of the way, grabbed it as it went behind him, and then spun the rest of the way around and used it to slash the second sword out of midair, causing them both to explode. And it's like, huh?
Yeah. So you have a completely a berserker really, who also has probably better fighting skills than any other person on the board. I mean, he's his swordsmanship, his fighting skills, his physical abilities were in their own right off the charts.
Well, no, because actually, especially if you compare him, because the only other berserker we have to compare it to is Heracles, really. If you compare him to Heracles in terms of his sword abilities and things like that, and in terms of his resistance to damage, was higher.
No, but I'm talking in terms of just the ability. I mean,
Berserker. Berserker in terms of his he was able to kind of hold his own for a little bit against Saber, but Saber ultimately won the fight. And the only other time that you see him he tries to go against Gilgamesh, but Gilgamesh just keeps sword spamming at him until he loses. And then the only other servant that he really goes to fight is Saber again at the beginning.
That's the thing. It's like it's all Saber.
Yeah.
It's like that's
Saber and Gilgamesh are the only people he wants to kill.
Well, he went to Gilgamesh because I think Gilgamesh pissed him off.
Yeah, Gilgamesh was just being a dick.
Yeah, but it was really like that's the thing about and it kind of if you know your history, you know your legends, the more you see it, the more it could kind of possibly dawn on you with his fighting skill and the fact that whenever he shows up, he doesn't give a shit what's going on. He shows up.
If Saber's nearby,
as soon as he sees Saber, goes straight for Saber. I mean, just like a dog after a rabbit.
So the first thing, your first hint is really his aesthetic.
Yeah,
he's a giant black
knight.
Armored knight.
Yeah,
and that should be your first clue. He's the fucking Black Knight. He's Sir Lancelot, but he's Sir Lancelot kind of like post disgrace, and
well, that's when he became the Black Knight.
Yeah, and he's summoned by Karya, but again, as a very taxing servant, winds up basically killing him. He's so draining that it causes the crestworms in him to eat him alive. But it's not until his final bout with Saber that he reveals his identity. I think in like the third to last episode or something, and they're clashing, and she's it's the moment that he catches her sword right before it strikes him, and she goes, "Wait. How does he know the length of my sword? Right. Like, how does he know these things? Why is he always after me? Do I know this person?"
Right.
And then she basically takes a step back and goes, like, if you're a knight, you must be a knight. You must be a knight of some renown, and you must know me. I demand that you name yourself. And in that moment, the black kind of fog, the black mist goes away. His armor morphs and changes, and his helmet comes off, and and she recognizes him to be Sir Lancelot.
Because she is still his king.
Yeah.
And he still has to obey her, even as a berserker.
Yeah.
So when she commanded him to reveal himself...
also Knight's Honor.
He had to.
Yeah.
He had to.
And he's so clouded with rage that his teeth are sharp. His hair is all like crazy.
Well, he's manifested as a berserker,
yeah,
so you get that true id coming out of him.
And the only words he can seem to say is Arthur's name in this like barely
this hissing like rage filled like just
and then it's not until and it's sort of ambiguous. I played the clip for us earlier of after he's defeated, and then Saber kind of after she disappears, she's recalling.
I kind of got the sense.
Do you get the impression that that was kind of like a moment that they sort of had?
I don't think it was that moment. I think it was a memory. I think it was a memory of something he had said to her.
I think it might have been
real life. Maybe.
I don't know. I think it might have been either that or it might have been once he was slain. Things like came back to some degree of rationality returned.
Yeah.
And he was able to, even if it wasn't that he was able to tell her, because it seemed like it was an internal monologue he was having.
It seemed like it. And that's kind of why I wondered if it was a memory.
And she kept saying, he would say something, and then she would say the opposite about herself. He's like, you were the greatest king, and she's like, I never should have become king. And he's like, all your people thought so. And she goes, everybody could see it. That I was not fit for it, and I was the only one. I was blind to it. My ideals blinded me. And he's like, everybody strove to be, to be an example and to be what you were, and everyone looked up to you. Everyone thought you were the king we all deserved.
But the other thing he's saying though is like what ruined him was the fact that is like
he wanted to be judged for stealing Arthur's wife.
I fucked up. And I feel bad about it, and you can't even acknowledge it. You just keep going. It's like I get nothing back from you.
Arthur was too righteous, and
you couldn't even forgive me. You couldn't even acknowledge it.
Yeah,
it's just if you would, and basically, I think his basic beef was like, you could be like the moral compass for the country, but you need to be more human.
Yeah, that was the thing, and
because now we're left with basically just banging our heads against the wall to try to like connect with you.
Yeah,
and drove us berserk.
Yeah, and it's
Lancelot
that's
was
the thing.
His
It's like
closest friend. I mean, that kind of a betrayal should have registered, and it didn't.
It's like, hey, I stole your wife, and then Saber's just like, okay,
because the flip.
And it's like, you mad?
I have no. It's like literally like, but my people need me.
My
it's
people
like,
need me.
It's like if
I
you would,
can't be mad.
Yeah, but the problem, and that's the
I'm
problem.
too busy being
if you
holy.
would just like, if you would just bother to like connect with us a little,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, you know, you're so busy being, you know, you're so busy being like apart from us. None of us can really communicate with you.
Yeah.
You know, so when we need you, you're not actually there for any of us.
Yeah.
Because, like, I needed you to, like, just acknowledge it or forgive me or be mad at me or whatever. And the fact is, you basically make us all feel like you're just...
Too good. Too far above us.
Yeah, the downside of it is the fact you make us all feel inferior, even though you don't mean to. You know, and
it's so... It really is, you know, and this is one of the things I talked about with Lisa... with Blade Works is like Saber's whole arc in that is that she's like she's summoned by Shiro in Blade Works because their time doesn't pass the same way in the Throne of Heroes.
Yeah.
She's summoned like almost immediately after the events of Zero, where everything is still fresh
in her mind. Yeah,
and she's got all these fresh wounds and you know, like metaphorical and emotional
called back
wounds.
and ready to go. Yeah,
And she's summoned back in after basically saying, like, I never should have been king. Everything I believed, everything I thought, everything I fought for, everything I fight for is a lie.
And that's what she realized in Zero. And the thing about Blade Works is the fact that that's her seeking her redemption for
Yeah,
it. But you get it flipped on it.
It's interesting because Shiro wants to become a hero. And that was the whole thing Kiritsugu chastised her for. It's like, people like you people want to become heroes and they throw their lives away.
Yeah.
And that's why that was so interesting to me when there was that moment in Blade Works when Fujine is like, oh, he wanted to be a hero of justice, blah, blah, blah. And Saber has this like weird, like puzzled kind of like look on her face. Like, why? She doesn't know what to think. And she looks at him, like, knowing Kiritsugu was his dad, she looks at him and is like, why do you want to be a hero? And he doesn't know what to say, and he kind of like excuses himself from the room. And, you know, he winds up kind of coming clean with her. He's like, I did it because my dad wanted to be one, and he couldn't. And she's like, I'm sure there's a little bit of it that's like, fucking called it. Like, I knew it.
Well, a lot of it was like, his thing is like, he always wanted to he didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to save everybody.
Kiritsugu.
Like, it's like, it isn't about being a hero. It's about actually doing good. But the whole chivalric notion in like Arturia and Zero, her attitude is like about being the role of a hero.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the same thing as actually doing heroic things. Yeah. And he couldn't get, and she didn't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, and he basically was just like, he just kind of like,
he rejected the notion.
He rejected. I'm getting tired. I can tell. Yeah. He rejected the notion of it, and he just kind of called her under bullshit and said, "It's like, you know, you're setting an example that, you know, people that get people killed.
Yeah.
It's like you're accomplishing the opposite of what you think you're accomplishing.
Stop telling everyone to eat Tide Pods, for fuck's sake. They're dumb enough to listen."
Yeah, basically, yeah. That's exactly kind of what it is. It's like, it's, you know, but it's just, it's the thing about her is like, I don't know. It's like she just, by the end of Zero, she's very disillusioned about who she was and who she is and everything like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, and that's the interesting thing about this is like every, you know, all the servants, well, most of the servants come through and they, you know, it's affected all of them and they carry something away with it from this experience. It's like, it's just like a, you know, you get a feeling that like they get summoned, they go, you know, and the other thing about her too is like, she's the most powerful servant. You know, the intent was for Kiritsugu to summon her so that they would have the most powerful servant, strictly to use her as a decoy.
That wasn't his intent, but that wound up being the plan that he came up with. He's like, caster or assassin would be better for me. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do with a saber. Like, but then he thought about it. He's like, everybody's gonna be looking at the saber. Yep.
That's the first one they're gonna take out because she's the most powerful one. And he's like, I can use that now. That's my cover.
Yeah.
And
honestly, if not for Gilgamesh,
might have worked.
She would have been, you know.
Yeah.
But Gilgamesh was just too much of a wild card, really.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, but at full strength, she probably could have handled Gilgamesh almost, honestly.
yeah,
I mean,
but
the point. I mean,
that's another.
No, but the point being though is that, he summoned the one that everybody wants.
Yeah.
He got her, and he used her as a decoy, and for herself, to basically be like, she's there, ready to go. I've got Excalibur. I'm ready to go. Let's do this. I'm going to fight so and so. Righteousness, glory. The Grail quest,
honor, respectable
blah, blah,
combat,
all that stuff.
chivalry,
and I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
And because the real fight is going on behind me.
Yeah.
And that rubbed her so the wrong way. It was just
and the fact that Kiritsuka was so willing to sacrifice lives.
Yeah.
For the Grail.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It was like she basically, again, the real world. She shows up with this mythology in her head, and she's immediately presented with a master who's doing things in a pragmatic 20th century fashion.
Yeah.
And she can't handle it.
Yeah.
She just can't. I mean, it's like what he's, the way he basically denied Diarmuid his honorable fight between knights, because and he tried to remind her, it's like, hey, it's like, smarten up here. It's we're trying to win this. And this is how we win it.
He needed to die, so I made it happen. Okay. Because you didn't.
Because if it's like, you might be able to beat him, but then I have no avenue for being able to neutralize his master.
Yeah.
It's like I can go get another servant. But if I get rid of the servant, and he explains, if I get rid of the master, then I've got this servant running around.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to get rid of both of them at the same time. And if he's busy fighting you, last time we tried this, we had all kinds of mayhem. So I'm going to do it my way now.
Yeah.
And she just was not having it, And it's just, and I think she was disillusioned by the whole experience, And so even the servants have interesting character arcs here.
Yeah, every character
they're not just video game. They're not just video game. Well, most of them do. They're
Castor even does.
Castor really.
Even Ryuunosuke has.
Because I got to tell you, Castor. Let's
jump into him now. Yeah, because
I'm not going to say much about him because frankly he repulses me. He's drawn to look like the monstrous kind of freak show that he actually was in real life.
They did such a good job with his character design.
He's like a cross between.
He's unsettling to look at.
Yeah,
his hands are the size of most people's entire skulls.
But his face is basically totally kind of strangely deformed. His eyeballs stick out of his head, but
they look like chameleon eyes.
Yeah, they basically look like chameleon eyes, and he's just pure evil. And he's to the point though where he's also hyper religious, but he can't understand how religion doesn't translate into mass murder, because his attitude is just I can do whatever I want because God doesn't punish me for it, so therefore he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And then he gets this epiphany that actually God does care and wants me to do this because any experience of life is a gift from God. Yeah. So slaughtering all of these people for fun is God's gift to me, and it's just he's so demented.
He and his master are both sincerely disconnected from reality and sincerely, genuinely suffering from deep psychosis.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the end of it. You can't connect with him on any level. Yeah. Because he's just batshit crazy. Yeah. And even to the point where he thinks his own delusions, he sees Saber and she kind of looks like Joan of Arc, so therefore.
She must be
Joan of Arc. Now,
and also that means that he must have already won the Grail War, and that was his wish being granted.
Yeah, because he's got Joan of Arc. So he thinks the Grail War is already. He just got there, didn't fight it, but he thinks he already won it.
Yeah.
He's completely insane.
Yeah.
Totally unhinged, and with him and what's his name, Ryuunosuke. They just go off the deep end, and they just go on this killing frenzy at random.
Yeah, this child kidnapping murder frenzy.
And honestly,
and they create these art exhibits in their fucking cave out of their bodies.
Dead children body. It's just the Japanese and their ability to tolerate sadistic violence is just, it's a little tough for Western audiences. I think I would hope it's a little tough for Western audiences to wrap their heads around, because at one point he picks up one little 5-year-old kid and just crushes the kid's head like a freaking grapefruit just to make a point. It was and without flinching. And I'm like, how are you? What?
The kid was 5. Yeah.
It's just and did nothing except basically be there. It's like
As soon as he snapped it, he had them all under hypnosis, and then as soon as he snapped his fingers, they all came out of it. And he's like, anyway, now go play hide and seek, and don't get found by me, and then he just grabbed the closest kid and popped his head like a fucking
just
grape.
to show the kids what'll happen
He
if
was
they
like,
get
yeah,
found.
I'll kill you.
You know, it's just like, I'm like, they don't. Yeah, the Japanese, they're not subtle with how they display things, man, because it's disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disturbing.
So, so get into his... You alluded to his true identity, but, like...
He's Bluebeard. He's
Gilles-
Gilles-de-Rais.
Gilles-de-Rais.
You know, who's, you know... And I don't know much about the character of Bluebeard. I've heard of him. He's, like, one of the, you know, the history's... Well, the serial killers have existed since the time of the primates, but I mean, it's just...
He fought alongside Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
In
Battle
France.
of Orleans, I mean, or something like that. The 100 Years' War.
And fell in love with her. And after she was executed, he basically went insane. He started murdering and torturing hundreds of people.
Yeah, all kinds.
And it started out with poor peasants, people that nobody would miss.
Essentially, he's the same stuff he was doing in war. He just started doing in public and just in pride and just in day-to-day life.
Yeah, just in his estate. He was massively rich.
Yeah.
So he just had this big estate, and he'd just kidnap these peasants and torture them and dismember them and, you know, whatever. And then he started running out of peasants, so he started going after other noble people. And he even says it himself. He says, the thing that brought me down was not God's wrath. It was
other aristocrats
landowners
that wanted my stuff.
Wanted my land.
Yeah.
So they charged me with a fake crime and executed me for it,
which
is 100% true to what happened from everything I've read.
Yeah.
They didn't
care. Well, that was the way it was back then. It's like they didn't care what you did to the peasantry, but it turned on one of the nobles. All of a sudden, you're a problem now.
Yeah.
There's a story like I think it was in Romania or something like that around the same time. She was basically considered like, you know, his legend, you know, a vampire basically is what they considered her to be. But she was a noble woman. She was a serial killer. She used to bring all these girls up, and she would murder them, drain their blood, and bathe in their blood.
I know exactly.
But she depopulated the female child populations of entire towns, doing hundreds of kids. And it wasn't until she ran out of peasant girls to murder in her land, in her territory, that she started murdering other nobles' children.
Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah, and then they came for her. The minute she killed a rich kid, they came for her. But she was free to murder all the poor people she wanted. It's just the way they did it back then.
She's another faith servant too. That's funny.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
So it's probably an assassin. But it's just, but he's just. You want to just like wash after watching a scene with him, and he's just vile. He's just vile. Ugh, I'm done talking about him.
Yeah. I have a hard time deciphering. I have a hard time, honestly, determining who's more evil, whether it's him, Zoken, or like Gilgamesh / Kirei.
I would say him through the simple fact of just the sheer amount of death and destruction that he causes and how gleefully he loves doing it. But the others, I mean, even Kirei.
But he's so disconnected from reality that it's like you have to wonder. It's like, does he even realize?
But a lot of like, but that's, you know, true.
Like,
an inability and unwillingness to basically even acknowledge the suffering of other people is basically a sign of evil. You know, that disconnect. That ability to understand, like, you know, to create all this pain and suffering because I want to see how pretty their guts look on the wall, you know, is, you know, because I'm not able to register the fact that I'm hurting people is evil. It's just, it may be completely disconnected from reality and crazy. Kirei, Zoken, they'll murder you if they need to, but if they don't, you don't pose any threat to them and they have no reason to see you as a roadblock, they'll probably leave you alone. But this guy is likely to murder you as soon as he sees you, just because he sees you. That's uncontrollable evil. I mean, it's
interesting because Kirei prolongs people's suffering because he derives so much joy in because he understands that they're suffering, and he derives genuine joy from it. He's like, I know what I'm doing, and I know what it's causing these people, and that's why I like it.
Yeah,
but it's almost like Castor is like so disconnected from the real world that it's like, it's almost like, you know what? Fuck, I can't say it. I was gonna compare it to something in one of the Heaven's Feel movies, but we haven't reviewed it yet. Yeah. But I think you might know the scene I'm talking about in the second movie.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. It's like, is just that how he views the world? You almost have to wonder.
Yeah.
Like,
probably does, but I don't think there's degrees of evil. People get which one's more evil. I think evil is evil. Like you can hit
a certain threshold and it's just all evil.
Yeah, you can either walk, run, swim, or bike or fly across that event horizon into evil, but once you've crossed that border, you're just evil.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
so Zoken,
Kirei,
Gilgamesh, Castor.
They're just evil.
Yeah.
They're just evil. I mean, once you get there, you're just evil, and you're kind of like, you basically get, you know, sorry to be a little prejudiced about it, but once you kind of cross that evil threshold, you're just kind of lumped in the same bucket with all the other evil people.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, there's no degrees of evil.
Yeah. Well, all right, and our last character is
frankly the least interesting.
Which
could have been the most interesting, but really wasn't used.
No.
Somebody, you know what? It's like there's only so much time. Somebody's got to go first.
Somebody, kind of like Ryder in Blade Works. Killed almost instantly. Shows up for like one fight, and then dies.
Yeah, basically.
Oh well. Fought Shiro for like 5 seconds, and then later got her fucking head twisted around 3 times by Kazuki.
Yeah, you didn't even really get the chance to see what it was that she was riding.
No, you literally don't. You literally don't, and you don't even learn her identity.
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't say what her identity was.
Fantasies about what it was she'd be riding, but I didn't actually get to see it. So.
But yeah, so Assassin's true name is Hassan Isaba, and he is one of the Hassan. And specifically, his name in the Fate lore is Hassan of the 100 Faces. He's summoned by Kirei, and when he manifests, when they manifest as what was it? Like it was probably like two or three dozen.
Yeah, hard to say. He's kind of a quantum servant because he's in a bunch of places at once.
Basically, what they are is they're a servant that is based on an individual who had multiple personalities, who had like dozens of personalities. They were
multiple personalities.
Yeah, they were one of the Hassan, one of the original assassins. And all of their personalities were killers, were psycho killers.
Yeah.
And essentially, when they were summoned, that multiple personality became, in a way, their noble phantasm. So they manifested as like 2 or 3 dozen different beings that could be in different places at once.
Yeah, you could summon one to be in a certain spot to watch somebody at the same time, like they were quantum entangled or something.
Yeah.
At the exact same time, he could have another version of himself at a completely different location, spying on somebody else,
or attacking somebody, or
doing
whatever.
Doing whatever. Yeah, or you could have all of them at once in the same area to just outnumber somebody. But at the same time,
and they all have their own distinct personalities, but they share a consciousness.
Yeah, same. Totally just different looks. Some are female, some aren't. Some, totally different personalities with the way they do things.
There's an old man and a child.
Yeah, but it's a matter of but they're like a hive mind. It's all one person. It's different facets of it. It's a really interesting character they could have done a lot with, but didn't do anything with because honestly, Summon is a decoy anyways.
Yeah.
Summon is again.
Literally the first exposure you get to them,
they're getting killed.
Is Kirei sends one to the Tosaka Manor to immediately get slaughtered by Gilgamesh, so that he can be like, well, my servant's dead, and then go hide in the church. Yeah, go hide in the church and then control the other 35 versions of the assassin.
Yeah. part of having such a tight relationship with the church is they let you kind of bend a lot of the rules, leaving your decoy like your servant, your assistant master, hiding out in a church pretending he's not a master.
It helps
anymore
that the assistant master was the son of the
that's
head of the church.
But that's my point. But that's what Tosuka's like angle was.
Yeah.
And honestly, if he hadn't been betrayed by them, it might have worked.
Yeah. It very well might have. But,
are we gonna stop?
Yeah. With that, we're gonna call this part 1 for right now.
Yeah, we can call it part 1.
So we're gonna call this part 1 then. Unfortunately, we didn't get to a lot of the stuff we want to talk about. Both this and Blade Works, they're so fucking dense. So much to them. And
there's a lot to unpack. And,
we didn't even get to kind of go through like an episode summary or anything like that. So what we'll do is we'll try to sit down. I'm going to edit this together. I'm going to get this out just so that you guys have something to listen to. It's probably going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then we'll try to sit down maybe next weekend and get the other half of this recorded right around the time that I record the Heaven's Feel 1 and 2 reviews. And then we'll get this out because there's so much to still talk about with this show, and we'll try to keep it still constrained to reviewing it, and then eventually we'll bring in the other elements and start comparing the different shows and talking about deeper lore and things like that, and talking about more personal feelings. But
it's a deeply written show.
God.
It's not written like some of the more shallow animes out there. It's written.
It's not Girls in Panzer, which is literally just girls riding tanks.
Yeah, it's
that's the lore.
Yeah, there's some depth to the characters. There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to discuss because, all the characters are well rounded. There's a lot of different plot lines going. It's It's rewarding to watch because it isn't something you can just shut your brain off and watch some shallow lots of bells and whistles. It's a deep story. It's which lends itself to multiple viewings if you like it.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen it like 3 times. I think I've lost count of how many times you've probably seen it.
I've lost count of how many times I've seen
it.
And there's other ideologies and philosophies that you and I want to discuss. We didn't even really get to talk that much about the Kirei Kiritsugu foil.
Yeah.
We didn't get to talk about probably my favorite 2 episodes of the entire Fate franchise, which is Kiritsugu's origin.
His origin story, yeah.
Is those are 2 of the best episodes of any anime that exist. And there's just so much more. Like, those 2 episodes are the 0 to 0.
Yeah.
Well,
they
give that background that 0 gives to Blade Works. Those episodes give that background to 0.
They provide a necessary background to what, by the end of the story, he's basically revealed himself as the main character.
Yeah.
He's not
an extraordinarily complex character.
He doesn't necessarily have... he probably has the most screen time, but he doesn't dominate the screen time throughout the series.
Yeah, that's why it's a very ensemble cast in this, and I like that.
But he does... by the time you're done, you realize that he's the main protagonist.
He
is the one character that has really driven the action to where it's ended, to its conclusion, more than any other character.
Yeah.
He's been the one stirring the drink the whole time.
Yep. So we'll get all into all that shit in part 2. So look forward to that, and also, like I said, Heaven's Feels 1 and 2, and then the weekend following next, we're gonna be having a spoiler cast, not review, spoiler cast episode. We're having a few people on. We're gonna try
a round table.
A round table. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We'll have a round table with discussing Heaven's Feel 3. I'm sure we're all going to be sufficiently traumatized. It'll probably start out with me being like, anyway, guys.
I'm going to start out with basically, Morgan, don't tell your mother about any of this.
It's going to be like, all right, we'll pass around the tissues and booze. Anyway, so I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to continuing this next week.
All right.
So,
Stay tuned.
Until then, keep watching that Weeb shit. And if you haven't watched Zero, go fucking watch it before next episode.
Yeah, it's gonna help.
Alrighty, have a good one, guys.
Bye.